The golden light of the setting sun spilled through the trees, casting long shadows over the clearing. The breeze carried the scent of pine and fresh earth, mingling with the faint aroma of burning wood from the village bonfires. Everything felt like it was holding its breath, waiting. Tonight, my life would change. I pulled my shawl tighter around my shoulders, my fingers brushing the soft embroidery at the edges. My mother had spent weeks sewing delicate silver thread into the fabric, weaving symbols of protection and love into every stitch. "For your new life, Celine," she had said, her eyes shining with hope. "For your future as Kieran's mate." Kieran. The name alone sent a warmth through me, something familiar and safe. We had been bound to each other since childhood, our fates intertwined before we even understood what it meant. He was the alpha of our pack, the leader, the protector, the one everyone looked up to. But to me, he was the boy who used to chase me through the fields, who once swore he'd keep me safe from every storm, every threat, every bad dream. I glanced toward the training grounds, where I knew I'd find him. He was never one to sit still before big events. Kieran needed movement, needed the burn of exertion to quiet his mind. And just as I expected, there he was. His back was turned to me, muscles shifting beneath the thin fabric of his shirt as he worked through a set of strikes against the training post. He moved with practiced precision, controlled, calculated. Every step, every motion was deliberate. I leaned against the wooden fence, watching the way the evening light caught in his dark hair, the way it curled slightly at the ends from the sweat. His shirt clung to him, damp along the edges where his body had warmed from the effort. "Still trying to impress me?" I teased, letting my voice carry over the space between us. Kieran paused mid-strike, his shoulders tensing for half a second before he turned. His sharp, hazel eyes landed on me, and for a moment, something flickered in them, something unreadable. Then, just as quickly, it was gone, replaced by his usual smirk.
"Impress you?"
He stepped closer, rolling his shoulders back like he hadn't just been lost in thought a moment ago.
"I thought I had that handled years ago."
I raised an eyebrow, crossing my arms over my chest. "Confidence looks good on you, Alpha." He grinned, closing the distance between us in a few easy strides. He always moved with a certain ease, like he knew the ground belonged to him.
"And doubt looks terrible on you. Why do I feel like you're second-guessing everything right now?"
I hesitated. He knew me too well. Before I could answer, another voice cut through the air. Smooth, lower, edged with something quieter, steadier.
"Because she overthinks things, always has."
I turned to see Adrian leaning against a nearby tree, arms crossed, an amused expression playing on his lips. His light brown hair was tousled, slightly messier than usual, and the white linen shirt he wore was unbuttoned at the collar, sleeves rolled up to his elbows. He had a way of looking effortlessly put together, even when he wasn't trying. Where Kieran was sharp angles and fire, Adrian was something else entirely. Calm, solid. The kind of presence that never demanded attention but always held it. "Overthinking is not a crime," I shot back, tilting my chin up. Adrian pushed off the tree, his movements unhurried, deliberate.
"No, but it is a habit. One I doubt Kieran has managed to break."
Kieran exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck.
"She doesn't listen to me."
Adrian's lips twitched, a quiet laugh escaping him.
"She never has."
I rolled my eyes, but there was no real annoyance behind it. This was what it had always been, Kieran, Adrian, and me. The three of us woven together by years of friendship, by moments like these. And yet, tonight felt different. There was something unsaid between us, lingering just beneath the surface. I could feel it in the way Kieran's gaze lingered on mine a second too long, in the way Adrian's jaw tensed when he looked at Kieran. Maybe I wasn't the only one overthinking. Kieran shifted, his expression softening slightly.
Are you ready for tonight?
The question was simple, but it carried weight. I should have answered easily, should have said yes without hesitation, but the words stuck in my throat. Was I ready? I had dreamed of this moment for years, being Kieran's mate, standing beside him, leading the pack together. It was everything I had been raised for, everything I had been promised. Adrian was watching me, quiet, unreadable. Kieran reached out, tucking a loose strand of hair behind my ear, his fingers lingering against my skin. The touch was gentle, familiar.
You're thinking too much again.
He murmured. I forced a small laugh. Old habits die hard. His thumb brushed along my jawline before he pulled away, his smirk returning.
Don't go getting cold feet on me, Celine. It's a little late for that.
There was teasing in his voice, but something about the way he said it made my stomach tighten.
She doesn't get cold feet,
Adrian interjected, his gaze steady on mine.
but she does need space to think.
Kieran sighed but didn't argue. He gave me one last look before stepping back,
I will see you tonight.
and just like that, he was gone, disappearing into the trees toward the pack house. Adrian stayed behind. He didn't speak right away, just stood there, watching me, like he was waiting for something. I swallowed. What?
You tell me.
He said quietly.
You looked like you wanted to say something back there, but you didn't.
I opened my mouth, then closed it again. Because what could I say? That I felt like something was slipping through my fingers. Like this moment, this life I had been waiting for, was suddenly making me question everything? Instead, I forced a smile. It's nothing. Just jitters. Adrian didn't believe me. I could see it in the way his fingers flexed at his sides, in the way his eyes searched mine. But he didn't push. Instead, he just let out a slow breath and said,
If you ever decided something more, you know where to find me.
and then, just like Kieran, he was gone. I stood there, alone in the fading light, the breeze tugging at my hair, the world around me silent. Tonight, everything would change. I just wasn't sure if it would be for the better, or if I was walking straight into something I couldn't undo. The mirror in front of me reflected a girl I should have recognized. My dark waves had been brushed until they shone, cascading over my shoulders like silk. A delicate silver circlet rested on my head, the thin metal glinting in the candlelight. My dress, a deep shade of midnight blue, hugged my figure, flowing down to the floor in soft folds. The fabric shimmered with every movement, almost like water under the moon. I felt beautiful, excited, ready, but nervous too. But something about my own reflection made my fingers curl against the wooden vanity. The room around me was quiet except for the crackling of the fireplace. Shadows danced along the stone walls, flickering over the tapestries that told stories of alphas before Kieran. My mother had wanted to be here to help me dress, but duty had called her elsewhere. Instead, I had been left in the care of one of the pack's attendants, Elara. She stood behind me now, carefully adjusting the pins in my hair. Her hands were gentle but steady, like she had done this 100 times before. You look breathtaking, she said softly, her voice carrying the warmth of someone who truly meant it. The entire pack will be in awe when they see you. I managed a small smile. That's the goal, isn't it? Elara tilted her head slightly, her sharp, knowing eyes catching mine in the mirror. The goal is for you to be happy, Celine, not just admired. Her words settled over me like a weight, I dropped my gaze, smoothing a hand over my dress. Happiness will come. It has to. She didn't argue. Maybe because she knew I was trying to convince myself more than I was trying to convince her. The door creaked open, and a rush of cooler air slipped into the room. I turned to see Rowan, one of the older warriors, stepping inside. His presence was a contrast to the quiet intimacy of the moment. Broad-shouldered, dressed in dark formal attire, with his sword still strapped to his side.
Everything is set.
He announced, his voice firm but not unkind.
The guests are gathering. The ceremony begins soon.
Alara stepped back, giving me space. You still have a few moments if you need them. I did need them, but I wasn't sure why. Maybe I was too nervous as things got faster than they should. Rowan didn't move from his place near the doorway. He wasn't an alpha nor a beta, but his word carried weight within the pack. He had trained Kieran. He had seen generations of warriors rise and fall, and like everyone else, he believed this union was meant to be.
You seem troubled.
He observed, his sharp eyes scanning my face. I let out a slow breath. Not troubled, just thinking. He studied me for a moment before stepping further into the room, his boots barely making a sound against the wooden floor.
It's normal to have doubts before a mating ceremony. No matter how strong the bond, the mind will always ask questions.
I looked at him then, really looked. His features were lined with age but not weakness. He had seen things, lived through things. Did you? I asked. Have doubts before your own? A flicker of something unreadable crossed his face.
Yes.
The admission surprised me. Rowan had always been the kind of man who seemed unshakable, built from stone and duty. He exhaled slowly.
But doubts don't always mean you're making the wrong choice. Sometimes they just mean you're standing on the edge of something bigger than yourself.
His words comforted me. I felt little relaxed, but deep inside, I wasn't sure if my hesitation was just nerves or if it was something more. The sound of distant drums echoed through the night air, faint but unmistakable. Alara touched my arm gently. It's time. I rose from the chair, smoothing out my dress one last time. My legs carried me forward, but my mind felt strangely distant, like I was watching myself from somewhere else. Rowan offered a slight bow before stepping aside, allowing me to pass through the doorway. The hallway beyond was dimly lit, the torches along the walls casting a warm, golden glow. The sounds of laughter and hushed conversations drifted from the courtyard. I walked slowly, my fingers brushing the cool stone of the walls as I passed. Every step felt heavier than the last, but somewhere I was happy too. For any another girl, it was a dream to become the mate of the alpha. And after all, Kieran and me, we have good bond since our childhood. Just like me and Adrian had good bonding, but this was not like friendship. This was a permanent selection. As I reached the staircase that led down to the main hall, I caught a glimpse of the ceremony space through the open archway. Lanterns lined the paths, their flames flickering in the evening breeze. The pack stood in neat rows, their eyes fixed on the central platform where Kieran would be waiting. I inhaled deeply, the scent of decorations filling my lungs. This was it. A movement in the shadows caught my eye. I turned my head just in time to see Adrian standing near one of the pillars, half hidden from view. He wasn't dressed for the occasion. No ceremonial robes, no formal markings. Just him. Adrian, in his simple dark tunic and boots, arms crossed, expression unreadable. But his eyes told a different story. They held something unspoken, something restrained. I hesitated, my fingers gripping the stone railing beside me. The world around me blurred slightly. The music, the voices, the weight of expectation pressing against my skin. Adrian didn't move. He just stood there, watching me, waiting. For what? For me to say something? To turn away? To change my mind? I ignored the feeling that if Adrian liked me, why was he not so happy? The drums sounded again, louder this time. Urgent. I tore my gaze away and forced my feet forward. One step at a time. One breath at a time. But as I moved toward the ceremony that would bind me to Kieran forever, I couldn't shake the feeling that a part of me had just left something behind. I was going to become a responsible Luna, not anymore just a young and joyful girl who had two best friends, Adrian and Kieran. The ceremony was already alive when I stepped closer into the courtyard. Golden lanterns swayed from the branches above, their soft glow casting pools of light over the gathered pack members. The scent of burning wood curled through the air, mingling with the faint trace of night-blooming jasmine. A sea of faces turned toward me as I walked, their expressions a mixture of reverence and expectation. Kieran stood at the center of the ceremonial platform, waiting. The moment I saw him, something inside me tightened, not in fear, not in excitement, but in the quiet acknowledgement that this was real. This was happening. His broad shoulders were framed by the heavy cloak of his title, black with silver embroidery marking his lineage. The torches flickered against the sharp angles of his face. Strong jaw, high cheekbones, eyes like tempered steel. He looked every bit the alpha he was meant to be. And yet, when our eyes met, there was something else beneath that commanding presence. Something quieter. Something I couldn't quite name. I stepped forward, my dress whispering against the stone pathway, but I felt the weight of another gaze pressing into me. I didn't have to look to know who it belonged to. Adrian. He was standing near the back, where the lanterns cast only slivers of light against the darkness. His expression was again unreadable, but his eyes, God's, his eyes burned. For the briefest second, I faltered. My grip on reality flickered like the lanterns swaying above me. I forced myself to face forward. The elders stood in a circle around the platform, their cloaks blending into the night. One of them, a woman with silver-streaked hair and a gaze as sharp as a wolf's, lifted her hand, signaling for silence. Kieran turned toward me, extending his hand. I placed mine in his. His palm was warm, his grip steady. He didn't pull me closer, didn't tighten his hold too much. He just held it, like an anchor, like a promise. I lifted my chin slightly, allowing myself to breathe. The bond between mates is sacred. The elder's voice rang through the courtyard. It is the union of souls, the merging of paths. The goddess does not bestow such gifts lightly, nor does she grant them without purpose. I knew the words by heart. I had been raised on them, molded by them. And yet, standing here now, they felt heavier than they ever had before. My fingers curled slightly in Kieran's hand. He glanced at me, just for a moment. It wasn't a questioning look. It wasn't a demand. It was something quieter, something that told me he had noticed my hesitation but wouldn't force me forward. That small mercy nearly undid me. The elder continued, her words rhythmic, practiced. She spoke of duty, of loyalty, of fate binding us together as Alpha and Luna. But my mind wandered, slipping past the practiced rituals and into the space where doubt lived. A shift in the crowd pulled my attention. Adrian had moved. Not far, just a step forward, just enough for the light to catch the sharp edges of his expression. His jaw was clenched, his hands curled into fists at his sides. His dark gaze never left mine, not even for a second. Kieran's fingers tightened slightly around mine. He had noticed. The silence between the words stretched unbearably. I swallowed against the tension coiling in my throat. The elder's voice cut through it. "Kieran Blackwood, do you accept Celine as your mate? To stand beside you as Luna? To protect and honor her for all your days?" Kieran didn't hesitate.
I do.
His voice was firm, unshakable. The kind of voice that didn't falter. The kind that carried through battles and led warriors to victory. The elder turned to me. "Celine, do you accept Kieran as your mate? To stand beside him as Luna? To protect and honor him for all your days?" The words were simple, but nothing about this was simple. The ceremony was silent, the weight of 100 eyes pressing against me. I opened my mouth. And then, movement. Adrian stepped forward again, just slightly, just enough that my breath caught. Something flickered across his face. It wasn't anger, wasn't defiance. It was something raw, something unspoken. A silent plea. My fingers trembled in Kieran's grip. I could feel Kieran watching me now, waiting, his patience an unspoken test. He wasn't demanding my answer. He was letting me give it freely. I sucked in a slow breath. "I do." The words left my lips, steady, final. A ripple moved through the crowd. The elders raised their hands, murmuring the final blessings. Kieran lifted my hand to his lips, brushing the faintest kiss against my knuckles. It was meant to be ceremonial, meant to be a display of unity. But Adrian turned and walked away. Not rushed, not dramatic, just gone. Like he couldn't stand to watch another second. The ceremony was over, yet the weight of it still clung to my skin like damp air after a storm. Every whispered blessing, every pair of eyes watching, every promise sealed in tradition, it was done. There was no turning back now. The glow of the ceremonial torches flickered behind me as I stepped away from the gathering, my movements careful, deliberate. My dress felt heavier than before, the rich fabric hugging my body as if it had absorbed the intensity of the night. I exhaled slowly, my fingers brushing the golden embroidery of my sleeve. I needed a moment, just one, to let it all sink in. But solitude was a luxury I wouldn't get tonight. Behind me, footsteps approached, steady and unhurried. I didn't need to turn to know who it was. Kieran. The new bond between us hummed beneath my skin, a silent pull, stronger than anything I had ever known. It was as if the universe had tightened an invisible thread between us, making his presence impossible to ignore.
We should talk.
His voice was low, unreadable. Not commanding, but not uncertain either. I turned slowly, my gaze meeting his. The firelight caught in his dark eyes, turning them into pools of molten gold. His ceremonial attire made him look every bit the alpha he was meant to be, strong, composed, powerful. But beneath that, there was something else, something guarded. For a moment, I wondered what he saw when he looked at me. A Luna, a responsibility, or his love. I wasn't sure that Kieran had accepted me as his Luna only for welfare, or he truly likes me. But Kieran was a good person. I have known him for so long, I could rely on him. "All right," I murmured, my voice softer than I intended. He didn't offer his hand, didn't try to close the space between us, yet somehow, it still felt like he was everywhere. I followed him away from the lingering crowd, past the torches and the prying eyes, toward the quieter paths leading deeper into the pack's territory. The woods were alive with the sounds of the night, crickets in the brush, the occasional rustle of leaves, the distant call of an owl. Even the moon seemed to watch in silence, casting silver light over everything. We stopped near the entrance of his quarters, a grand yet simple space carved from stone and wood, nestled against the mountain's edge. The door stood open, the warmth of the fire inside spilling into the cool night air. Kieran turned to face me fully now, his expression unreadable.
Are you all right?
The question was unexpected. It wasn't forced, wasn't polite. He actually meant it. I hesitated. Was I? I am okay, or I don't know, I admitted. Everything happened so fast. His jaw tightened slightly, just enough for me to notice.
I know.
He said.
It wasn't exactly how either of us imagined it would be, but we know each other, don't we?
That was an understatement. I let out a quiet breath, arms folding across my chest. And now we're here. A muscle in his cheek twitched, and for the first time tonight, something flickered in his eyes. Something close to frustration, but not directed at me.
I don't expect you to.
He stopped himself, exhaling sharply.
This isn't easy for either of us, Celine. But no matter how we feel about it, this bond is real now.
Real. That word settled between us, solid and unshakable. I swallowed, my fingers tightening around the fabric of my dress. I know. Silence stretched, thick with everything we weren't saying. The weight of the night pressed in, filled with unsaid words, unspoken fears. Then, finally, he moved. Not towards me. Not away. Just enough for his fingers to ghost over the edge of my sleeve, barely there, like a whisper of a touch.
Do you want to come inside?
His voice was lower now, softer, but the weight of the question was anything but light. There was no force behind it, no expectation, just an offering, a choice. I met his gaze, searching for something I wasn't even sure how to name. And for the first time, I saw it. The slightest crack in his perfect composure. The flicker of uncertainty in someone who was always so sure. I opened my mouth to answer. But before I could, movement in the distance caught my eye. A shadow. A figure standing at the edge of the gathering, far enough to be unseen by most, but not by me. Adrian. He wasn't close, wasn't intruding. He just stood there, watching me. Something clenched deep inside me, something raw and complicated. The way he stood, the way his posture was too still, too controlled. It wasn't just quiet. It was restrained. Our eyes met across the distance, and a storm passed between us. He didn't move, didn't speak. And then, as if making a silent decision, he turned and disappeared into the night. The breath I hadn't realized I was holding escaped my lips, leaving behind an ache I didn't know how to name. Kieran's voice pulled me back.
Celine.
I turned back to him, but my mind was still there, where Adrian had stood, where something unspoken had just slipped through my fingers. I hesitated, feeling the weight of two different roads pressing against me. Kieran's gaze searched mine, waiting. I forced a small smile, one that didn't quite reach my eyes. Yeah, let's go inside. And with that, I stepped into the warmth of Kieran's quarters, leaving the night, and everything it held, behind, for now. The warmth of his touch burned against my skin, a constant reminder that this bond was now permanent. We stepped into the private chambers prepared for us, a spacious, dimly lit room with furs draped across the wooden floor and the scent of burning cedar in the air. Kieran closed the door behind us, his presence filling the space, his broad shoulders blocking out the last glimpse of the celebration outside. I turned away, exhaling slowly, my fingers tracing the carved patterns on a nearby table. I wasn't ready to look at him, not yet. My emotions were tangled, caught between duty and the raw, unspoken feelings buried deep within me.
You haven't said much all night.
Kieran's voice broke through the silence, low and unreadable.
Are you regretting it already?
His words carried no accusation, but they weren't empty either. I swallowed, my throat dry as I forced myself to face him. His piercing blue eyes studied me, searching for something I wasn't sure I could give. It's not regret. I like you, Kieran, as you already know, I answered carefully. It's just a lot. Kieran stepped closer, his movements slow, deliberate. He wasn't just my mate now. He was my alpha, bound to me in ways that couldn't be undone. He reached for my wrist, his thumb brushing over the mark that sealed our fate. My pulse thrummed beneath his touch, though I wasn't sure if it was from nerves or something else entirely.
I know this isn't how you imagine things. It wasn't how I imagined them either. But since we were childhood best friends, it will be easy for us in this situation rather than if you had been chosen by a stranger.
My breath hitched as his fingers trailed up my arm, his warmth seeping into my skin. This should have felt natural. It was supposed to. But my thoughts betrayed me, slipping to another pair of hands, another set of eyes burning from the crowd. Adrian. The memory of his stare during the ceremony clung to me like an invisible chain. He had stood there, still as stone, not a word leaving his lips, but I had felt his rage, his pain, like a storm waiting to break. He had hidden it well, but I knew him better than that. Kieran's fingers reached my jaw, tilting my face up to his.
Are you going to let me in, Celine?
The air between us felt charged, the weight of expectation pressing down. I could see the struggle in his expression, the part of him that wanted to claim what was his, and the part that knew I wasn't ready. But I wasn't resisting either. I replied, "Of course." Kieran moved closer and asked,
Are you sure?
I replied, "Yes." Kieran placed his left hand grabbing my waist politely, and the right hand grabbed my backside of neck. I knew what was going to happen. I was ready for this. I had spent my childhood days with Kieran. He was trustworthy, but since all things happened so fast that I was trying to settle myself into the situation. Kieran moved even more closer, his lips just inches from mine. I lifted my sight to meet his eyes. I saw love in his eyes, for me. I was still nervous, but I had agreed to be his mate as suggested by everyone, so I stood on my decision. And then I smiled. Kieran kissed me, politely, a soft touch at first brushing my lips, and then it became deeper. I let his love to enter into my soul. His hands brushing my skin near my shoulders, and then Kieran placed his fingers near the chain of my dress in the back. I exhaled deeply. He unchained. He touched my skin, his fingers brushing softly and gently until he reached my waist. Then he kissed near my neck. I felt loved deeply. His fingers found my shoulders, after which he slipped my dress from my shoulders, revealing my inner wearings. His kisses headed downwards. My heart raced. I closed my eyes, but a knock on the door shattered the moment both of us looked at each other, and then I adjusted my dress very well, like it should be before someone enters our room. Kieran's eyes darkened with irritation as he turned toward it. I took a step back, releasing a breath I hadn't realized I was holding.
Come in.
He called. The door creaked open, revealing one of the younger pack warriors, Leo, his golden hair slightly disheveled, his expression tense.
Alpha, there's something you should see.
Kieran's entire posture shifted, his muscles tensing beneath his dark tunic. Without hesitation, he strode toward the door, pausing only once to glance at me.
Stay here.
He ordered softly. It was a request. The door shut behind him, leaving me alone in the flickering candlelight. My hands trembled slightly as I pressed them against the cool wooden table, grounding myself. Something was wrong. I moved to the window, pushing the heavy curtains aside. Outside, the celebration still carried on, but there was a shift in the energy, whispers moving through the crowd like ripples in water. In the distance, a figure stood near the edge of the trees, barely illuminated by the torches lining the pathway. Adrian. My breath caught as I watched him, his stance rigid, his fists clenched at his sides. Even from here, I could sense the war raging inside him. He had always been good at masking his emotions, but tonight, the cracks were showing. I had little doubts that he was hiding his emotions from me since years, so obvious because he was not the alpha, and Kieran was meant to be my mate, as everyone had acknowledged every time. But now I had explored his feelings by his gestures in the ceremony. I hesitated for only a moment before slipping out of the chamber, my feet silent against the stone floor. The hallway was empty, the voices of the pack distant as I moved quickly through the corridors. When I stepped outside, the cool night air wrapped around me, but it did nothing to settle the storm in my chest. Adrian turned before I even reached him, his sharp golden eyes locking onto mine. "What are you doing out here?" I asked, my voice quieter than I intended. He exhaled sharply, shaking his head.
I needed to breathe.
I took a step closer. "Adrian."
Don't.
He cut me off, his jaw tightening.
Not tonight.
The raw edge in his voice struck something deep inside me. For a moment, we just stood there, the distance between us feeling like an invisible barrier neither of us could cross. Then, in the silence, I heard it. A sound so faint, so out of place, it sent my instincts into high alert. A rustling in the trees. But it didn't sound casual. Adrian stiffened at the same time I did, his body shifting slightly in front of mine. We weren't alone. Adrian stepped closer, his presence warm despite the cold air.
What was it?
"I don't know, but something was there."
Yes, but I don't think that may be anything danger. It's a party, a celebration. Maybe someone is walking there.
I turned to face him fully. "You think something happened?"
I don't know.
We stepped towards the trees, but it felt normal. But there was nobody. Then what was that rustling? I just ignored and talked with Adrian a little bit to normalize the situation. But after a few minutes, one of my pack members rushed towards me and said, "Where is Kieran?" I noticed that few minutes had passed, and Kieran should have returned now, but he was nowhere. I replied, "Someone had came and asked him to visit somewhere important." Adrian exhaled sharply, his jaw tensing.
Don't worry, he will be okay. He is the alpha.
The unease inside me swelled. Without another word, I stepped past Adrian and headed inside. The corridors were quiet, most of the pack gathered at the feast. My footsteps echoed softly against the polished wooden floors as I approached Kieran's door. It was not completely locked, but it was closed. I knocked once. Silence. I knocked again, louder this time. "Kieran?" Nothing. A slow, cold dread crept along my spine. I pushed the door open. The room was dark, the fire in the hearth reduced to glowing embers. The scent of him lingered. Wood smoke and something deeper, uniquely Kieran. But he was nowhere in sight. But the window was open, the curtains shifting slightly with the night breeze. Adrian came up behind me, his presence a steady force at my back.
He's gone.
My throat tightened. A loud howl pierced the night, cutting through the distant sounds of celebration. It wasn't a cry of joy. It was a call of alarm. Adrian and I exchanged a glance before rushing down the corridor. My bare feet barely touched the floor, pushing past the gathered wolves who had heard the same sound. The tension in the air grew as we reached the courtyard. A group of warriors had gathered near the entrance gates, their faces grim. The pack's Gamma, Elias, stepped forward as soon as he saw us.
It's Kieran.
He said, voice tight.
He's gone.
My breath caught. What do you mean he's gone? One of the patrols saw him leaving through the forest border. He was running, shifted, moving fast. He didn't stop when they called for him. I shook my head. That doesn't make sense. Kieran wouldn't just... Adrian's voice cut through mine, sharp and controlled.
Did anyone go after him?
Elias hesitated.
No one was sure if it was an order.
My heart churned at the thought. Kieran was alpha now. If he had truly left on his own, the pack wouldn't dare question him. But this wasn't Kieran. Not the Kieran I knew. I turned to Adrian, my pulse racing. We have to find him. His jaw tightened.
I'll get the trackers.
Before I could respond, another voice cut through the night.
You won't find him.
An elder wolf, one of the council members, stepped forward. His silvered hair gleamed under the moonlight, his expression dark with something I couldn't place. I forced my voice to remain steady. What do you mean? He studied me for a long moment before speaking.
This has happened before.
The words sent a wave of ice through my veins. Adrian stepped forward, his tone sharp.
Explain.
The elder's gaze flickered to him before settling back on me.
Not every alpha stays by choice.
The world tilted slightly beneath my feet. You think someone took him? The elder exhaled, his face lined with an emotion I couldn't name.
I think your mate isn't coming back.
A slow, eerie silence spread through the gathered wolves. I struggled to breathe past the sudden pressure in my chest. Kieran had vanished. And somewhere deep inside me, a terrifying thought took root. This wasn't just a disappearance. This was a warning. Adrian said,
Celine, don't waste time. Let's find out.
Adrian rushed towards the horses and returned with his favorite horse along with some guards and pack members who were ready to search for. We both started searching Kieran along with some members and guards. But we didn't find even a small clue related to him. Disappointing in my heart settled as we returned, but Adrian said,
Celine, I know him. He won't run away like this. He liked you, I know. And he will never abandon his pack like this. Something is wrong with him.
I asked, Are you sure? Or maybe I made him to think that I was not confident about this ceremony. Adrian replied,
It's not like that. You were just nervous just like any other girl would be in her ceremony with the alpha.
Glad. You know me too well. Adrian looked toward the trees.
Of course, we all three know each other very well.
I glanced at the halls. I knew it was the time to take rest. See you in the morning. Hope that he returns. Adrian's eyes widened.
He will. He have to. He is not a coward. He is our alpha for some reasons. Good night.
Adrian walked away with silence. Adrian's words and supporting gestures made me comfortable and hopeful that my mate will return. I was so glad that even if Adrian liked me, he was there to help me in this situation. He was not jealous. He was the same old friend. Best friend I was looking for inside him. As I stepped into my new room, the emptiness sent me a hollow feeling. My mate was missing. I asked myself, was it my fault? Maybe I had overthink and behaved weirdly. I locked the door and stepped into my bed, but of course sleeping was far from my eyes and mind. The night was already past more than half. Still I felt restless. I wanted my mate back. I couldn't live like this. The morning after Kieran's disappearance felt unreal, like waking up from a dream that left a strange taste in my mouth. The pack house was silent, but it wasn't peaceful. It was the kind of silence that meant everyone was waiting for something. A sign, a command, a leader. And Kieran wasn't here to give them one. I stood near the window of my room, looking out at the training grounds where warriors usually sparred at this hour. Today they stood in groups, murmuring, their movements hesitant. The entire pack was on edge, waiting for someone to step up, someone to fill the void Kieran had left behind. Behind me, the door creaked open. I didn't have to turn around to know who it was.
Celine,
Adrian's voice was steady, but there was something different in it today. Something heavier.
the council has made their decision.
I turned to face him, my pulse quickening. He stood in the doorway, his usual easygoing posture gone. He looked different, in a way that told me something inside him had shifted. His blue-gray eyes were sharper, more focused. The Beta I had known since childhood was gone. In his place stood a man who had just been given the weight of an entire pack. I swallowed, my throat dry. They chose you, didn't they? Adrian exhaled slowly, stepping further into the room.
Until Kieran returns.
But we both knew the truth neither of us wanted to say out loud. The pack didn't believe Kieran was coming back. And if he did, he wouldn't be the same. Adrian ran a hand through his dark hair, a habit of his when he was thinking too hard.
They expect me to lead, but some of them still believe Kieran abandoned us. They won't follow me easily.
I took a slow breath, watching him. Then make them see why they should. His gaze flickered to mine, something unreadable in his expression.
You always make it sound so simple.
He murmured. I shrugged. Maybe it is. May it is not, but you have to handle this. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The weight of the situation sat between us, heavy and unspoken. He was the new alpha, and I was... what? Kieran's mate? A title that no longer meant anything. A part of me still ached for Kieran, for the boy I had loved all my life. But another part, one I didn't want to acknowledge, felt something else when I looked at Adrian. Something I wasn't ready to name. The council had called a gathering in the Great Hall. Every ranked wolf in the pack was there, along with the elders and warriors. The air was tense, filled with unspoken doubts and silent challenges. Adrian stood at the front, his shoulders squared, his presence commanding. He wore a simple black shirt, sleeves rolled up to his forearms, veins visible beneath his skin. His jaw was set, but his expression gave nothing away. He was ready. I stayed near the edge of the crowd, watching as he stepped forward.
I know what you're thinking.
Adrian began, his voice calm but strong.
Kieran should be here. He should be leading us, not me.
Murmurs rippled through the pack. Some nodded, others looked away. Adrian didn't flinch. He let them have their moment before continuing,
But he is not here.
his tone unwavering.
And whether he left by choice or not, the pack cannot afford to stand still. We need a leader. We need strength. And I will not let this pack fall apart because we're too afraid to move forward.
A hush fell over the room. Adrian wasn't trying to be Kieran. He wasn't asking for approval. He was taking the role, whether they liked it or not. A warrior near the front crossed his arms.
And what if Kieran comes back?
Adrian didn't even blink.
Then I will step down. But until that day comes, I am your alpha.
A beat of silence. Then another. And then, one by one, wolves lowered their heads in submission. It wasn't a loud declaration, no roaring approval. But it was enough. Adrian was their alpha now. Later that night, I found him on the balcony overlooking the forest. The moon was bright. Adrian leaned against the railing, his expression unreadable. I hesitated before stepping beside him. "You handled that well." He glanced at me, something flickering in his eyes.
You sound surprised.
"I'm not," I admitted, "but I know it wasn't easy." A small, humorless smile touched his lips.
No, it wasn't.
The silence between us wasn't uncomfortable. If anything, it felt familiar. Like all the nights we had spent growing up, side by side, never needing words to understand each other. But my position was like nothing. But this was different. I could feel it in the way Adrian's gaze lingered on me a little longer than before, in the way my chest felt warmer when he was close. in the way my body was suddenly more aware of his.
Kieran's gone,
He said after a moment, his voice quieter.
and I don't know if he's coming back.
I swallowed, gripping the railing. I don't know either. Adrian turned toward me, his presence closer now, warmer.
Celine, if he doesn't come back, what happens to us?
My breath hitched. I didn't know how to answer that. For years, my future had been set in stone. I was meant to be Kieran's mate, the Luna of this pack, the woman standing beside him. But now everything was uncertain. And Adrian had always been there. But not like this. Not with this unspoken tension crackling between us. Not with his eyes watching me like I was something he wanted, but wasn't sure he was allowed to have. I took a slow breath. I don't know, I said honestly. Adrian held my gaze for a long moment before exhaling softly.
Yeah.
He murmured. Me neither. But he didn't step away, and neither did I. The pack was restless. Even though Adrian had stepped up as acting alpha, the tension in the air felt like walking barefoot over shattered glass, silent, sharp, and waiting for the wrong step to draw blood. Some of them accepted his leadership, trusting him to hold the pack together in Kieran's absence. But others weren't convinced. They whispered in hushed corners, their doubts turning into dangerous seeds that could take root at any moment, and I could feel it. I stood on the training grounds, arms crossed, watching as Adrian sparred with one of the warriors. He moved like a storm barely contained, controlled but powerful. Each strike, each dodge, each calculated step. It was a reminder of why he had been Kieran's beta, why he had been trusted with so much responsibility. But that trust wasn't unanimous anymore.
He's getting too comfortable in that position.
A voice murmured behind me. I turned my head slightly, catching sight of a group of warriors standing a few feet away.
He was supposed to hold things together temporarily.
Another added, not bothering to lower his voice.
But look at him. Like he's already decided to make it permanent.
A flicker of irritation sparked in my chest. Maybe because someone has to, I said, my tone sharper than intended. The men stiffened, startled that I had heard them. Their eyes darted away, but the doubt in them didn't disappear. If anything, it grew stronger. I exhaled slowly and looked back at Adrian. He had ended the sparring session, wiping sweat off his forehead with the back of his hand. The sunset bathed him in a golden hue, highlighting the sharp edges of his face, the fierce intensity in his gaze. He wasn't smiling. He never smiled much these days. And when his eyes met mine, something flickered there, something unreadable. Then I noticed that Adrian was trying to make me comfortable at every point he could. Any another man would have taken advantage of the situation, but Adrian always asked me for my opinion before taking any decisions, and that made me felt that Adrian was really supporting me. Later that night, I found Adrian outside, leaning against the railing of the pack house balcony. The sky stretched endlessly above us, dotted with stars. You heard them, didn't you? I asked, stepping beside him. He let out a slow breath.
I hear everything, Celine.
I studied his face, the way his jaw tensed, the way his fingers gripped the railing just a little too tightly. They don't understand, I said softly. They don't see what you're doing for them. Adrian let out a low chuckle, but there was no humor in it.
People see what they want to see. Right now, they want someone to blame. And I'm the easiest target.
He wasn't wrong. Kieran's absence had left a hole in the pack, and uncertainty had filled the space where loyalty once was. I hesitated before speaking again. Do you ever think about stepping down? Adrian turned to me then, his gaze sharp and unreadable.
Do you want me to? If you want, I will.
The way he asked it, low, careful, like he was testing the weight of my answer, made something tighten in my chest. I just don't want you to be alone in this, I admitted. You've been carrying everything by yourself. but I don't want you to step down." Adrian's lips parted slightly, as if he wanted to say something, but he didn't. Instead, he reached for my wrist, his fingers brushing against my skin for just a second before he stopped himself.
I'm not alone.
He murmured.
Not when you're here.
The way he said it sent something warm curling in my heart. I wasn't sure what he was trying to hint. I looked away, swallowing against the strange pull between us. It wasn't new. It had been there, lingering in the quiet moments, in the stolen glances, in the way he always seemed to position himself between me and any danger. But neither of us had ever acknowledged it. Actually, I can't say about Adrian. Or maybe I was the person who didn't wanted to admit it, because this wasn't how things were supposed to be. Yet standing there under the moonlight, with his presence steady beside me, I couldn't help but wonder, if Kieran didn't return, if things didn't go back to how they were, what then? Adrian shifted, breaking the silence.
You should get some rest. You've been running yourself into the ground lately.
So have you, I countered. He smirked, but it didn't quite reach his eyes.
I can handle it.
I frowned, stepping closer. That's not the point, Adrian. You don't have to handle it alone. For a second, he just stared at me. Then something shifted in his expression, something softer. Without thinking, I reached out and touched his arm, and he didn't pull away. I could feel the tension in him, the weight he carried pressing down on his shoulders. I had the sudden urge to take some of it from him, to remind him that he didn't have to bear it all alone. "Adrian," I said quietly, "I see you." His breath caught just for a second, and then he did something unexpected. He lifted a hand and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, his fingers brushing lightly against my cheek. The touch was brief, barely there, but it sent something electric through my skin.
You should go inside.
He murmured, his voice rough. I didn't move, neither did he. For a moment we were just standing there, caught in something neither of us fully understood yet. But before either of us could say anything else, a distant howl shattered the quiet. Adrian's body went rigid, his expression instantly sharpening. The moment was gone, replaced by instinct and duty. "Trouble?" I asked, already preparing myself for the worst. His eyes flickered toward the darkness beyond the trees.
Let's find out.
And just like that, we stepped away from whatever had almost happened between us, back into the world that refused to let us breathe. But as we moved, I couldn't ignore the way my pulse quickened, or the way Adrian stayed just a little closer than before. Then someone said,
There are few werewolves trying to intrude in our territory.
Adrian shifted in his werewolf form and rushed toward the bushes from where the howling came. Everyone's eyes locked into Adrian. Maybe the pack members were trying to find out how much Adrian is capable of. I glanced at them and asked, "You all should help Adrian to discard the intruders." One of the elder pack members stared at me with a smile.
Not at all. This is his test. He cannot just claim the position and acquire it. He must prove himself first.
I said, "This is too much." My heart raced. If something happens to Adrian, then the pack will again lose its alpha or beta, whatever Adrian was. But then I saw Adrian returning with dominance in his eyes. He was already transformed into his human form. The elder pack member who was saying that it was Adrian's test. Now this elder member kneeled down in front of Adrian and said,
You are the true savior. You deserve it. We are glad that you are doing this for us.
Adrian replied.
It's my responsibility as the beta of the pack to protect you all in absence of our alpha.
Everyone praised Adrian, and now some of the protesters also joined the praising like they had accepted Adrian as their alpha. I saw a different kind of satisfaction in Adrian's eyes. I wasn't sure what it was. Satisfaction of saving the territory or being accepted as the alpha. But Adrian had taken down 4 to 5 werewolves alone. He was definitely deserving. Slowly and gradually, everyone started accepting Adrian as their alpha. But I was feeling close bond with Adrian, not like a friend. It was something else, but a part of my heart always stopped me because I was the mate of my alpha, even if he was not here. But still, my mind and heart was always looking for Kieran, my mate, my alpha. The days had started to change, not in a way that was obvious to everyone, but I could feel it. It was in the way people glanced at me when I walked past, the whispers that never quite died before I entered a room, the way Adrian stood a little closer, his presence steady like an anchor in the middle of a storm I wasn't ready to name. Kieran's absence still sat heavy on the pack, but Adrian had stepped in without hesitation. He carried the weight of leadership as if he was born for it, and I could see the shift in the pack's eyes. Some had already accepted him as their alpha, others, not so much. I was sitting outside the main hall, my fingers lightly tracing patterns on the wooden table in front of me. The cool evening breeze brushed against my skin, carrying murmurs of conversations from nearby. I had grown used to the way my name now lingered in those talks.
Celine and Adrian.
Do you think he's trying to take Kieran's place?
They've always been close, but lately.
I clenched my jaw and looked up, watching Adrian from across the training grounds. He was sparring with two warriors, his movements precise, powerful. He fought like he had something to prove, and maybe he did. And then I was wondering about Kieran. I was lost in my thoughts.
Are you going to tell me what's on your mind, or do I have to drag it out of you?
I turned sharply to see Adrian standing beside me, arms crossed, sweat still clinging to his skin from training. He must have noticed me staring. I let out a breath. People are talking. He pulled out the chair across from me and sat down, his gaze steady.
Let them.
It's not that simple, I said, leaning forward. They think, I don't know, that I'm moving on, that we...
Celine.
His voice was low, firm.
You don't owe anyone an explanation.
He said it like it was easy, like it didn't feel like betrayal to be standing beside him when Kieran was still out there, lost. But the truth was, Adrian had been here, by my side, through every uncertain moment since Kieran disappeared. He had protected me, defended me, stood between me and the doubts that threatened to swallow me whole. And that loyalty, it did something to me. I looked away, focusing on the lanterns flickering along the pathways. I just don't want to make things harder for you. A small, dry chuckle escaped him.
You think this is hard? I've dealt with worse, Celine.
Later that night, I sat by the window in my room, watching the moon. My thoughts were a tangled mess. The battle, the whispers, the way Adrian had looked at me. A soft knock on my door pulled me from my thoughts. I already knew who it was. I opened it and Adrian stood there, his expression unreadable. You should be resting, I said softly.
So should you.
I hesitated, then stepped aside, letting him in. He didn't sit, just stood there in the dim light, his presence filling the room. After a long silence, he spoke.
They're talking about us.
I swallowed. I know. Another pause, then quieter.
Do you want them to stop?
I looked at him, really looked at him. Adrian, my best friend, my protector, the one who had stood beside me when everything else had fallen apart. I don't know, I whispered. For the first time, I saw something flicker in his expression, something he had never let me see before. He took a step closer, his fingers barely grazing mine.
Then we figure it out together.
His words settled deep in my chest, and for the first time in weeks, the weight didn't feel so heavy. I was trying to sleep, but my thoughts were spinning inside my mind. But then I heard it, a distant howl from the bushes. It felt like a warning or something, a threat maybe. I immediately stepped outside. I saw Adrian was standing in the balcony watching the trees from where the howl came. Before I could respond, a distant howl cut through the air again. It wasn't one of ours. Adrian was on his feet instantly, eyes sharp, body tense. I followed him as he strode toward the training grounds, where warriors were already gathering.
That was close.
One of the scouts reported, his breathing uneven.
Strangers near the eastern border. At least 10 of them, maybe more.
Adrian didn't hesitate.
We move now.
The pack shifted into action, warriors grabbing weapons, shifting into their wolves. I stayed close to Adrian as we moved through the trees, my pulse steady but alert. This was the first real attack since Kieran had vanished. We reached the eastern border quickly. 10 figures stood in the clearing, their eyes glowing with the unmistakable hunger of rogues. They weren't here to talk. Adrian stepped forward, his voice calm but lethal.
Leave now, or you won't leave at all.
One of them, a taller male with a jagged scar running down his cheek, bared his teeth in a wicked grin.
Acting Alpha Adrian.
He drawled.
That title suits you more than I expected. Seems like Kieran left an opening, and you wasted no time filling it.
A muscle ticked in Adrian's jaw.
Last warning.
The rogue laughed.
You think this pack is yours to keep?
He lunged. Adrian met him mid-air, their bodies colliding in a violent clash. The other rogues didn't hesitate. They charged, and the clearing erupted into chaos. I didn't stay back. I darted through the fight, dodging claws and striking where I could. One of the rogues turned on me, his fangs flashing. Before he could reach me, Adrian was there, grabbing him by the throat and throwing him against a tree with enough force to crack the bark. For a moment, everything stilled. The remaining rogues took one look at Adrian, then at their fallen members, and without another word, they fled. Breathing heavily, I turned to Adrian. His gaze locked onto mine, his chest rising and falling with adrenaline. There was something in his expression, something fierce, something protective. He stepped toward me, close enough that I could see the golden flecks in his brown eyes.
Are you hurt?
I shook my head. I'm fine. His gaze swept over me anyway, as if he didn't quite believe me. Then, slowly, he exhaled, the tension in his shoulders easing just slightly. The warriors around us murmured in awe. Adrian had just proven himself, not just as a fighter, but as a leader. We walked back to the pack grounds together side by side. The whispers started before we even reached the main hall.
Did you see him? He fought like a true alpha.
Maybe he should be Alpha.
And Celine. They looked like a couple.
I didn't need to hear the rest. I sat on the balcony, watching the moon settle into the sky. The night stretched endlessly, but my thoughts refused to slow down. Adrian had been in the training grounds all evening, speaking with the warriors, giving them new strategies in case another attack came. He had taken his role as acting alpha seriously, but not everyone accepted him. I had heard the whispers, the doubts, the suspicions. Some still saw him as Kieran's shadow, waiting for the moment to claim what wasn't his. Others had begun to question me. Was I staying close to Adrian because I believed in him, or because I wanted him? The thought made my heart tighten. I didn't know the answer.
Are you hiding from me or just avoiding everyone else?
Adrian's voice pulled me from my thoughts. I turned to find him standing in the doorway, one shoulder resting against the frame. His dark hair was a little messy, the loose strands falling into his sharp eyes. He looked different than before, stronger, more sure of himself. There was no hesitation in the way he carried himself anymore. I sighed. I just needed some fresh air. His lips curved slightly, but he didn't move closer.
You mean you needed space?
I didn't answer. There was no point in lying. He knew me too well. Adrian walked onto the balcony and leaned on the railing beside me. His shirt clung to his frame. He wasn't wearing his usual leather jacket, just a simple black t-shirt and dark jeans. It suited him. For a long moment we didn't speak. The silence between us wasn't uncomfortable, but it carried weight. I heard about the rumors, I finally said. His jaw tightened slightly.
Which ones?
I exhaled. You know which ones. A slow breath escaped him.
It doesn't matter what they say.
I frowned. It does, Adrian. People are talking, questioning your place here. Some think you want to replace Kieran permanently. His gaze flickered, but he didn't look surprised.
Do you think that?
I said without hesitation. No, my voice very clear. He studied me, searching for something in my face.
Then why does it bother you so much?
I pressed my lips together. Because they weren't just questioning him. They were questioning me. My loyalty. My decisions. The pack expected me to be Kieran's devoted Luna, waiting for his return without question. But with each day that passed, I found myself relying on Adrian more, trusting him more. Because I need you here, I admitted. If people start turning against you, I'll be standing alone. Adrian's expression softened. He reached out, brushing a loose strand of hair from my face. His fingers were rough, calloused from years of training, but the touch was careful.
You won't be alone, Celine, no matter what happens.
My breath hitched slightly. The way he said my name, it was different now. He had always been my best friend, the person I could depend on. But something was shifting between us. I stepped back, needing space to clear my head. We should talk about what happened at the border today. Adrian studied me for a second before exhaling.
Right. The markings.
I folded my arms. Do you think they have something to do with Kieran's disappearance? His expression turned serious.
It's possible. The rogues who attacked us weren't just random strays. They were testing our strength. And now these symbols appear. Someone is sending a message.
A chill spread through me. If they took Kieran, why haven't they made demands? Why hasn't there been any sign of him?
I don't think they want a ransom, Celine. I think they wanted him gone.
My stomach dropped. Gone?
Not dead,
He added quickly.
but out of the way.
The words made my throat tighten. Kieran had many enemies. He was a powerful alpha, a threat to anyone who wanted control. But if someone had planned this, it meant they had been watching for a long time, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. I rubbed my arms. Then that means you're their next target. A shadow passed over Adrian's face, but he smirked.
Let them try.
I shot him a look. I'm serious, Adrian. If they took Kieran, they could try to take you too. His eyes darkened.
I'm not Kieran.
The words were simple, but they carried weight. Adrian was strong, different. He had never wanted power, but now that it had been forced on him, he wasn't running from it. I swallowed. We need to find out who's behind this before it's too late.
We will.
He hesitated, then stepped closer, lowering his voice.
But there's something else I need to ask you.
I glanced up at him. What? His gaze locked onto mine, unreadable.
If Kieran doesn't come back, what will you do?
The question sent a sharp jolt through me. He will come back. Adrian studied me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then finally, he nodded.
All right.
But something in his tone told me he wasn't convinced. I turned away, gripping the railing. The wind brushed against my skin, carrying the scent of the forest. My mind was spinning, my emotions tangled. Adrian moved behind me, close enough that I could feel his presence without touching him.
No matter what happens, Celine, I'll stand by you.
I closed my eyes. I wanted to believe that. But something told me things were only going to get more complicated. When I opened my eyes, I saw Adrian very close to me, just inches from my lips. I was surprised. Adrian was looking at me. It seemed that he was asking for permission. I don't know why. I was trying to avoid my feelings about Adrian, but his warm breath was pulling me closer. I controlled myself, and finally I managed to speak. Adrian, even if Kieran don't return, I will always be his mate. Adrian's eyes darkened with huge disappointment on his face, his gestures, like he didn't expect that response from me. Without saying anything, he walked away. The sun had barely set when I first heard the murmurs. It started with hushed conversations in the corridors, then at the training grounds, and finally at the communal dining hall where most of the pack gathered. Everywhere I went, the same whispers followed me.
They look perfect together.
Adrian and Celine will make a powerful Alpha and Luna.
She's moved on from Kieran. Adrian is the right choice.
I pretended not to hear. I kept my face neutral, but inside, my thoughts were in chaos. I had spent years believing my fate was sealed, that I would always belong to Kieran. But he had left, disappeared without a word. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. I had told myself he would return, that he was still mine. But what if he wasn't? What if he never came back? I turned the corner and nearly bumped into Adrian. He caught me by the arm, steadying me before I could stumble. His grip was firm but gentle, his thumb grazing my wrist for the briefest moment before he let go.
You okay?
His voice was low, carrying that quiet concern he always had for me. I swallowed, my throat suddenly dry. Yeah, just lost in thought. He studied me, his green eyes searching my face for something I wasn't sure I was ready to give. Adrian had always been there, always watching, always waiting. He never said it outright, but I knew. I had always known. "Walk with me," I said, surprising myself. He raised an eyebrow but didn't hesitate. We fell into step, moving past the bustling courtyard where a group of warriors sparred. The cool evening breeze wrapped around us, carrying the scent of pine and earth. For a while, neither of us spoke. I needed to find the right words, but they felt tangled in my chest. I glanced at him, taking in the sharp angles of his face, the way the fading sunlight traced the lines of his jaw. He wasn't just my best friend. He never had been. "I hear what they're saying," I finally admitted. Adrian didn't pretend to misunderstand. He exhaled slowly, his hands sliding into his pockets.
It doesn't matter what they say, Celine. What matters is what you want.
"What if—" I hesitated, my voice barely above a whisper. "What if I want you?" His entire body went still. I had never seen him at a loss for words before, but now he looked like he didn't trust himself to speak. Before he could, I closed the distance between us and pressed my lips to his. It was instinct more than thought, a decision made in the space between heartbeats. Adrian stiffened for a fraction of a second, but then his arms were around me, pulling me close. His lips moved against mine, warm and firm, tasting of something I hadn't let myself want until now. I wasn't sure how long we stood there, lost in the moment. But when we finally pulled apart, his gaze searched mine like he was trying to make sense of what just happened.
Are you sure?
His voice was unsteady, raw. "I've never been more sure of anything," I whispered. Adrian cupped my face, his thumb brushing against my cheek in a way that sent warmth through me.
Celine?
He trailed off, shaking his head like he couldn't believe this was real. I smiled, the weight of uncertainty lifting from my chest. "I mean it, Adrian. Kieran is gone. Maybe he's never coming back. And I can't—" I took a shaky breath. "I can't keep waiting for something that may never happen. I don't want to." His expression softened, something unreadable flickering in his eyes.
Then let's do this together.
I nodded, the words settling in my bones. Together. For the first time in months, I felt like I had finally made a choice for myself. A choice that felt right. I stepped forward and gently kissed him. His lips were warmer than I expected. But fate had other plans. A rapid knock on the door pulled us from our quiet moment. Adrian exchanged a glance with me before striding over and pulling it open. A pack warrior stood there, his expression bright with excitement.
It's good news.
He announced, barely containing his enthusiasm.
Come with me.
I frowned. "What is it?"
You'll want to see for yourself,
he said. Adrian and I shared a look before following him through the pack house. The corridors felt endless, my steps growing heavier with every turn. A part of me already knew before I even saw him, and then I did. standing in the center of the grand hall, dressed in torn clothes, bruised but very much alive. Kieran. My breath caught. He looked different, but it was still him. His blue eyes met mine across the distance, something unreadable flashing through them. For a long time no one spoke. Adrian was the first to move. He stepped forward, his posture straight, strong.
Welcome home, Alpha.
The title stung. I had barely made my decision, had barely whispered the words together, and now everything was crumbling beneath me. Kieran's gaze flickered to me, his jaw tightening.
Celine.
I swallowed, but no words came. His eyes darted to Adrian, something sharp crossing his expression.
I heard you were taking care of things while I was gone.
Adrian held his ground.
Someone had to.
Silence stretched, thick with unspoken tension. Then Adrian did the last thing I expected. He stepped back.
I was never meant to be Alpha,
he said. His voice was even, but I knew him too well. He was hurting. He was letting go. I turned to him, my chest tightening. Adrian. He met my gaze, something resigned in his expression.
Kieran's back, that changes things.
No, it didn't. It shouldn't. But Kieran was watching me now, waiting for my reaction, waiting for me to step toward him, to reclaim the place that had always been mine at his side. Adrian's hand brushed against mine, a fleeting touch, his way of telling me that the choice was no longer his to make. I wanted to scream, to tell him that I had chosen him, that Kieran's return didn't erase what we had just started. But I couldn't, because I wasn't just Celine, I was the future Luna, and my mate had come home. As I walked toward my room, Kieran's presence beside me was warm, familiar, yet something about him felt different. He moved with a quiet confidence, but there was a tension in his shoulders, an intensity in his gaze that hadn't been there before. I tried to brush it off, convincing myself that I was overthinking it. Adrian stood at a distance, his piercing eyes watching me, but he didn't say a word. A moment later, he turned and walked away. I couldn't tell if he was angry or just resigned, but the sight of him leaving left an ache in my chest that I couldn't ignore. Kieran shut the door behind us, exhaling heavily. His hands slid around my waist, pulling me into a hug. His grip was firm, possessive almost. His chin rested on the top of my head, and I closed my eyes, trying to ease my mind. But something was off. His body didn't feel the same. There was a tension in him, a dominance that felt heightened. I pulled back slightly. "Are you okay?" He studied me for a moment, then ran a hand through his hair, letting out a bitter laugh.
No, I'm not.
My stomach tensed at his tone. "What happened?" He sat down on the edge of the bed, resting his elbows on his knees, his fingers clasped together tightly.
I was kidnapped.
The words hit me like a storm. "What?"
The Rogue Queen's people took me.
His voice was quieter now, filled with something deeper, something dangerous.
She did something to me. Witchcraft.
My breath caught. Witchcraft. He looked up at me, his eyes darker than usual.
She wants this land, our territory, and she used magic to make sure I wouldn't be strong enough to fight back.
The room suddenly felt smaller. How bad is it?
It's getting worse. I feel weaker every day. And if you don't stand by me now, Celine,
He paused, his jaw clenching.
I won't make it.
A cold wave of fear spread through me. Kieran, the powerful alpha, the man who had always been so untouchable, was saying he was losing himself. I sat beside him, taking his hands in mine. "You're not alone," I whispered. "We'll fix this." His fingers tightened around mine, as if holding on to me was the only thing keeping him grounded. He closed his eyes, exhaling slowly.
I just need to rest.
He muttered, his voice quieter now. I stayed with him until his breathing evened out, but as I watched him sleep, my mind wandered to Adrian. I couldn't stay here, not yet. Slipping out of the room, I made my way down the halls, my feet barely making a sound against the stone floor. When I reached the balcony, I saw him. Adrian stood there, lost in thought, the night breeze playing with his dark hair. His back was straight, his hands resting on the railing, but there was something heavy in his stance, something unspoken. I stepped closer, and his head turned slightly.
What are you doing here?
His voice was steady, but there was a quiet storm behind it. I leaned against the railing beside him, staring at the dark horizon. Everything is so complicated now. He didn't say anything, just waited. I took a breath, choosing my words carefully. I want to tell Kieran the truth, that I love you, that I can't pretend anymore. Adrian's jaw tightened.
That's not the right decision.
I frowned. Why? He turned fully toward me, his gaze sharp.
Because he needs you.
I shook my head. I noticed something about him. He's different. You must have seen it too. Adrian hesitated, then looked away.
I know.
Then why are you telling me to stay with him? He ran a hand down his face, exhaling sharply.
Because you're his mate, Celine, and I'm...
He trailed off, shaking his head.
It doesn't matter.
I touched his arm, my fingers barely brushing his skin. It matters to me. He let out a short, humorless laugh.
You think I don't want to be selfish? You think I don't want to fight for you?
His voice dropped lower, rougher.
But I know how this ends, and it's not with us together.
I swallowed, my throat tight. Are you sure? His lips pressed into a thin line.
Yes.
A lump formed in my throat, but I forced a small smile. You're too good, Adrian. Too genuine. I thought you'd never accept me being with Kieran, not after... He cut me off.
Do you think I have a choice?
He let out a soft breath, looking down at his hands. I loved you before I even understood what love was, but I never said anything, because everyone always knew you and Kieran would be together. I felt my chest tighten, the weight of his words pressing against me.
And now,
he continued,
when fate finally gave me a chance, it took it back.
I opened my mouth to say something, anything, but nothing felt right. Adrian straightened, forcing a smirk that didn't reach his eyes.
But it's fine. The time I spent with you, I wouldn't trade it for anything.
I stared at him, my thoughts in chaos. Then a voice cut through the moment like a blade.
So, you took advantage of my absence, didn't you, Adrian?
Adrian and I turned sharply. Kieran stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable, but the storm in his eyes was impossible to miss. I took a step toward him. It's not what you think. His gaze flickered to me, then back to Adrian.
Isn't it?
Adrian held his ground.
You should listen to her.
Kieran let out a short, bitter laugh.
Why? So you can convince me that you weren't trying to steal my mate.
That's not what happened. My voice was firm, but my pulse raced. Kieran tilted his head, his expression dark.
Then tell me what did.
I hesitated, not because I was guilty, but because I knew no matter what I said, he wouldn't hear it. Adrian took a step forward.
I never crossed a line.
Kieran scoffed.
Really? And I'm supposed to believe that?
I grabbed Kieran's arm. Stop it. His gaze flicked to where my hand rested on him. For a moment, something almost vulnerable flashed across his face, but then it was gone. He pulled away.
I need to think.
I reached for him again, but he stepped back. Without another word, he turned and walked away. I felt the weight of the moment settle around me, pressing against my ribs like a vice. Adrian was still watching me. He won't forget this.
I know.
He hesitated.
And you?
I don't know anything anymore. Silence stretched between us, heavy with everything left unsaid. And for the first time, I wasn't sure if anything would ever be the same again. I pushed open the door to my room, finding Kieran exactly where I left him, standing by the window, arms crossed, his gaze dark and unreadable. The moonlight cast a sharp outline around him, making him look even more distant.
He will have to regret this.
Kieran muttered under his breath, his voice carrying a sharp edge. I knew exactly what he meant, but I refused to let his anger fester. You misunderstood, I said, keeping my tone calm. Kieran didn't argue. He didn't say another word. He just turned away, climbed into bed, and shut his eyes. I sighed and lay down as well, but sleep didn't come easy. The weight of unspoken words pressed against my chest. A fight meant to hurt. Morning came, and when I woke up, Kieran was gone. The sheets were cold where he had been, as if he hadn't been there for hours. I washed my face and stepped outside, rubbing my arms against the morning chill. The training ground wasn't far, and I could already hear the clash of bodies, the sharp exhales of breath, the rhythm of combat. Then I saw them, Kieran and Adrian, locked in a fight. Only it wasn't a fight. It was Kieran punishing Adrian. Kieran's attacks were calculated, vicious. His movements were too aggressive for a training match, his strikes carrying more force than necessary. Meanwhile, Adrian was fighting with restraint, deflecting the blows but never truly attacking. Adrian wasn't trying to hurt Kieran, but Kieran was trying to hurt Adrian. My stomach clenched as Kieran delivered a brutal strike. Adrian staggered back, sweat glistening on his skin, but he still didn't retaliate. He just endured. And then, in a final swift move, Adrian took control. He maneuvered Kieran's weight against him, pinning him down, ending the fight. The warriors watching let out quiet murmurs. Adrian won. Without hesitation, Adrian bent down on one knee, lowering his head in respect. Kieran didn't acknowledge him. He just walked away. Something was wrong. Later that evening, I found Kieran sitting at the edge of the bed, his elbows resting on his knees, fingers tangled in his hair. His breaths were uneven, his body visibly tense. "What's happening to you?" I asked softly. He exhaled through his nose, not looking up.
It's getting worse.
I stepped closer. How do I stop this witchcraft? His shoulders tensed.
I don't know.
The helplessness in his voice made my chest ache. I wasn't used to seeing him like this, so worn, so frayed at the edges. I turned on my heels and marched toward Adrian's room. When he opened the door, his expression softened, like he already knew why I was there. "Help me," I blurted out. "I can't watch him fight with himself like this." Adrian's gaze flickered, something unreadable passing through his eyes.
I'll do anything to make Kieran heal.
"Then we have to find a way to fix this," I said. Adrian nodded.
We'll go to the forest tonight. There might be something there. Some clue.
For the first time that day, I felt a small spark of hope. But that hope didn't last. The betrayal I didn't see coming. It wasn't long before I heard shouts outside. I rushed to the courtyard just in time to see warriors surrounding Adrian, shackles locking around his wrists. Panic gripped me. "What's happening?" One of the warriors lowered his gaze.
It's an order from the Alpha. We can't help him. Sorry.
Adrian didn't resist. He didn't argue. He just stood there, accepting it like he had already made peace with his fate. I watched as they led him away. This wasn't right, and I knew exactly where to go for answers. A dangerous conversation. I stormed into my room, my hands shaking with anger. Kieran was there, sitting on the edge of the bed, running a hand through his dark hair. He barely glanced at me as I stepped closer. "Why did you cage Adrian?" I demanded. "He's our beta." Kieran exhaled slowly.
He's an enemy.
I clenched my fists. "He's not." His gaze flicked to mine, unreadable.
You want to be with him?
I stiffened. "I'm with you. Can't you see that? But what you did to Adrian, it was wrong. He's always taken care of this pack. He's done nothing to betray you." Kieran leaned back, his lips curling into something that wasn't quite a smile.
He's taken good care of you too, hasn't he?
My chest tightened. "It's not like that." He laughed, but the sound was hollow, and then, as if something inside him cracked, His body trembled violently. He gripped the bedpost, his breathing uneven, his face contorting in pain. I didn't hesitate. I rushed out the door. "Someone get the doctor!" I called out. Within minutes, the pack's healer arrived, placing a vial of liquid against Kieran's lips. He drank it down, his shaking subsiding, but only slightly. The relief was temporary, and I realized something terrifying. This wasn't just a sickness, this was something far darker. Maybe a slow poison. As I sat beside him, watching him sleep, unease settled deep in my bones. Had I made the right choice being with Kieran? He was more jealous now, more possessive, more cruel, and worst of all, he doubted me. But even as I wrestled with those thoughts, my mind kept drifting back to one person, Adrian. He was suffering because of Kieran's anger, and I hated the way that made me feel, because no matter how hard I tried to ignore it, one thing was clear. I wasn't okay with what was happening to Adrian, and that meant something I wasn't ready to admit. Not yet. I sat beside Kieran for a long time, watching the steady rise and fall of his chest as he slept. The room was dim, the curtains drawn just enough to let in slivers of moonlight that cast silver streaks across his face. He looked peaceful. Too peaceful for someone carrying so much rage, so much hurt. His dark lashes rested against his cheekbones, his lips slightly parted, his hand limp beside him. The weight of everything that had happened pressed against me like an invisible force, but for a moment I allowed myself to just watch him, to remember. Kieran, the boy who had once held my hand when I scraped my knee, the boy who used to steal my bread just to make me chase him, the boy who had promised to protect me when we were children. And now, the man who had returned to me, bruised, broken, and vengeful. But Adrian, the thought of him sent an uneasy wave through me. I needed to see him. I rose quietly, not wanting to wake Kieran, and slipped out of the room. The hall was silent except for the soft crackling of torches along the stone walls. My steps were light, but my mind was heavy. I had to find Adrian. I had to know what they had done to him. Spotting a young pack member, I stepped forward. "Where is Adrian?" I asked, my voice firm but low. The man hesitated.
"Luna, he's been moved to the black room."
I stiffened. The black room was not just a cell. It was meant for those who were considered dangerous. Without another word, I turned and walked swiftly toward it. My pulse quickened with every step, my breath growing unsteady. When I reached the heavy iron door, I found 2 guards stationed there, their arms crossed over their chests. "Open it," I commanded. One of the guards shifted uncomfortably.
"We can't, madam. It's an order."
I clenched my jaw. "I am the Luna," I said, my voice sharper this time. "Open the door, now." They hesitated for only a second before obeying. One of them produced a key, and with a loud clank, the lock was undone. The door creaked open, revealing the cold, dark interior. I stepped inside, my stomach twisting at the sight before me. Adrian was caged like an animal. His hands and legs were bound with heavy chains, his once proud posture reduced to a slumped figure against the cold metal bars. His shirt was torn, revealing bruises along his arms. His black hair was disheveled, falling over his tired eyes. But what unsettled me the most was the way he looked at me. Not with warmth, not with relief, but with something dangerously close to hatred. I swallowed hard and took a step closer. "Adrian." My voice was barely above a whisper. His gaze darkened.
Don't.
I dropped to my knees beside the cage, my fingers gripping the cold bars. "I'm so sorry," I said, my throat tightening. "This is all my fault. I swear I'll fix this." Adrian let out a bitter chuckle.
Fix this?
He leaned closer, the chains rattling.
The day I walk out of here, Celine, I will destroy Kieran.
I felt the words like a slap. My breath caught. "Adrian, that's your anger talking. I know you're not like this." He tilted his head slightly, the dim torchlight casting eerie shadows across his face.
I have become this.
His voice was hollow. A sharp knock on the door interrupted the moment. One of the guards stepped inside, looking nervous.
Luna, please. Before Kieran finds out, we must return.
I hesitated. For a moment I wanted to stay, to plead with Adrian, to make him see reason. But the way he looked at me, the raw hatred in his voice, it shook something inside me. Slowly I rose to my feet. "I'll fix this," I whispered one last time before turning away, back in the hall. When I returned to the room, Kieran was gone. A strange unease settled in my chest as I stepped back into the dimly lit hallway. My mind kept replaying Adrian's words, "I will destroy Kieran." I tried to push it away, to tell myself he was just hurt, just angry, but the conviction in his voice haunted me. I walked through the corridors searching until I found Kieran sitting alone in the grand hall. A single candle flickered on the table beside him, casting long shadows across the walls. He held a glass in his hand, swirling the amber liquid inside with slow, deliberate movements. "Kieran," I spoke softly, stepping closer, "you can't drink. You need rest." He let out a low chuckle, the sound both amused and tired.
Do you remember our childhood?
He asked suddenly, ignoring my concern.
The day we married?
I hesitated, caught off guard by the shift in conversation. "Yes," I answered. "I do." Kieran lifted his gaze to mine, his blue eyes sharp and unreadable.
You were nervous.
He murmured.
I remember how you avoided looking at me that whole night.
I exhaled, sinking into the chair across from him. "It wasn't you," I admitted. "It was everything. One moment we were friends, and the next, we were mates. It happened so suddenly. I wasn't ready." Kieran leaned back, setting the glass down.
No, Celine. You were nervous because you loved Adrian from the start. You just never told me because I was the alpha.
I shook my head, my fingers gripping the arm of the chair. "Kieran, believe me or don't, that's your choice. But the truth is, I always liked you. Adrian was my best friend, just like you. That's all." His jaw tensed.
Is that true?
"Of course it's true," I said firmly. "I waited for you. Ask anyone in this pack. Adrian never betrayed you. He never tried to take advantage of me." Kieran studied me for a long moment, then exhaled through his nose.
I see.
He murmured.
But now, you only love Adrian, don't you?
The question cut deeper than I expected. I opened my mouth, then closed it, unsure of what to say. "It's complicated," I admitted finally. "But you should know one thing. I still care for you. And you shouldn't seek revenge on Adrian just because you were gone and he took responsibility. I was alone, Kieran. Adrian was my best friend. I leaned on him. That's all it was." Kieran's expression remained unreadable.
And now that I'm back, you choose me?
I met his gaze. "I choose you." A bitter smile ghosted his lips.
You made a mistake, Celine. You should have gone with Adrian instead of me.
I swallowed the lump in my throat. "I don't regret it, not at all." Kieran's fingers curled around his glass, his knuckles turning white.
And what will you do when I collapse?
The question made my breath hitch. "I'll find a way to fix this," I whispered. "But I need Adrian's help." Kieran let out a dry laugh.
You think he'll help me? After what's been done to him?
I hesitated. The memory of Adrian's words, "I will destroy Kieran," flashed through my mind, making me pause. Finally, I forced a smile and shook my head. "Forget it," I said softly. "You should get some rest." Kieran watched me for a long moment, then leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table.
You know,
He murmured.
for the first time in my life, I don't know if I can trust you.
His words cut deeper than I expected, but I didn't flinch. Instead, I rose from my seat, my expression calm. "You don't have to," I whispered. "I'll prove it." And with that, I walked away, leaving Kieran alone in the flickering candlelight, lost in his own storm. The morning arrived with a strange stillness, a silence that felt unnatural, as if the world itself was holding its breath. I stirred awake, stretching my arms above my head. But the moment I turned to check on Kieran, a cold wave of panic shot through me. He wasn't moving. His face, usually so full of authority and quiet intensity, was drenched in sweat. His breathing was ragged, uneven. His dark hair clung to his forehead, and his lips were slightly parted as if struggling for air. He looked weak, too weak. "Kieran!" I grabbed his wrist, squeezing it gently. His skin burned under my touch. He groaned softly but didn't fully wake. Panic flared in my chest. "Somebody get the doctor!" I shouted, my voice sharp and urgent. One of the guards rushed out. Within minutes, the pack's doctor arrived, an older man with sharp eyes and a tired expression. He examined Kieran briefly, his hands cool and clinical against Kieran's fevered skin. "Well?" I demanded, arms crossed tightly over my chest. The doctor sighed.
I can give him something to reduce the fever, but this isn't an ordinary illness, Luna.
I clenched my jaw. "Then what is it?" The doctor hesitated, glancing at me with something close to pity.
It's something else.
I already knew. It was a witchcraft. A chill that had nothing to do with the weather ran through me. I turned back to Kieran. His fingers twitched, his brows furrowing as if he were deep in a dream, or a nightmare. I reached for his face, brushing damp strands of hair away. "Kieran, wake up," I whispered. And just like that, his eyes flew open. A sharp breath left my lips as he sat up abruptly, his entire body tense. His golden brown eyes, normally steady and unreadable, were filled with something wild, something electric.
I have got it.
He murmured, almost to himself. His breathing was still heavy, but now it wasn't from weakness. It was something else. Determination. My fingers curled around his wrist. "Got what?" His gaze snapped to mine, intense and unyielding.
I finally understand how this can be stopped.
I stared at him, heart racing. "How?" Kieran swung his legs over the side of the bed, standing up with a steadiness that should have been impossible in his condition. He didn't answer. Instead, he walked toward the door, his movements quick and deliberate. "Kieran!" I rushed after him, grabbing his arm, but he barely acknowledged me. "Where are you going?" He kept walking, his voice calm but firm.
To destroy the curse.
I blinked. "What? First, tell me how, and we need to inform the pack. We should fight together." Kieran halted just outside the fortress. The morning sun cast a golden glow over his features, highlighting the sharp angles of his jaw and the tension in his shoulders. When he finally turned to me, his expression was unreadable.
This is a war within me.
Something about the way he said it sent a sense of unease through me. Before I could argue, he turned again, heading toward the forest with long, purposeful strides. I didn't waste another second. I spun around, calling out to the pack. "Everyone, we need to help him!" The pack members, sensing the urgency in my voice, rushed forward. They tried to stop Kieran, to reason with him, but the moment they got close, he pushed them back. No, he didn't just push them back. He threw them off as if they weighed nothing. Warriors, some nearly as strong as Kieran himself, hit the ground hard, groaning in pain. It was not Kieran himself. Maybe he was being controlled. I took a step back, shock buzzing through my veins. He wasn't himself anymore. Someone behind me murmured,
"Luna, Alpha is not himself. He's no longer capable of leading us."
We must rescue Adrian. He's the only one who can stop this.
My mind clenched. Adrian. Adrian, who had spent the last few weeks barely looking at Kieran without his eyes burning with hatred. Adrian, who might be the only one strong enough to stop this madness. But at what cost? I exhaled sharply, shaking my head. No, not now. And then, Kieran lifted off the ground. Gasps echoed around me. My breath caught in my throat. His body floated several feet into the air, arms outstretched, his head tilted back. It was like something invisible had seized control of him. His boots no longer touched the dirt. That's when I saw her, the rogue queen. She stepped forward, her presence swallowing the space around her. A tall, imposing figure draped in dark blue silk, her dress shimmering under the daylight. A pointed hat sat atop her head, the long tail of it swaying slightly as she moved. Her lips curled into a smirk. "Do you see your alpha now?" she mused, her voice smooth and mocking. "He is nothing. Leave this place, or I will destroy every last one of you." Rage surged inside me. Without thinking, I sprinted toward Kieran, reaching for him. But a force slammed into me. I stumbled backward, hitting the ground hard. My hands stung where they scraped against the rough dirt. The witch, the rogue queen, whatever she was, she smirked, her fingers twitching ever so slightly. Magic. Kieran's lips parted. One word escaped.
Adrian!
The pack erupted into chaos. The guards sprinted toward the black room where Adrian had been kept prisoner. My chest tightened as I struggled to get back on my feet. No. If Adrian came back now, he would see Kieran as the enemy. And if they fought, the witch wouldn't have to lift a finger. She would let them destroy each other. I turned sharply, ready to stop the guards myself. But before I could take a step, one of them came running back, eyes wide with panic.
Beta is gone.
Silence fell. The rogue queen laughed, a soft, chilling sound. Betrayal tasted bitter on my tongue. How had Adrian escaped? Had he abandoned us? There was no time to process it, because the witch turned her gaze back to me. "And you?" she asked, tilting her head. "Will you kneel like the rest of them?" Around me, pack members had already fallen to their knees, heads bowed. Their surrender was written in every defeated line of their bodies. But me? I lifted my chin. Something dark flickered in her expression. Annoyance. She stepped forward, but before she could speak again, I lunged. My body moved before my mind could catch up. 1 second I was standing still. The next, I was on her, fists swinging. She barely had time to react before I landed the first hit. The second hit didn't land. Magic wrapped around me, shoving me back so hard that my vision blurred. I hit the ground, gasping for air. The battle erupted around us. My pack, those who had once kneeled, sprang into action, launching themselves at the witch's guards. It was chaos, a blur of bodies, growls, and flashes of claws. Blood spattered the ground. One of my pack members stumbled toward me, his face twisted in desperation.
"Luna, run! Please."
But I didn't move. I wouldn't run. Not now. I pushed myself up, my entire body throbbing with pain, and met the rogue queen's gaze once more. Either I would destroy her, or she would destroy me. I stood up. I was about to attack, but then a giant werewolf came in between. It was Adrian. Adrian moved like a shadow, fast and ruthless. His massive werewolf form crashed into the witch, sending her skidding across the ground. A snarl ripped through the air, raw and commanding. He was stronger, so much stronger than I had ever imagined, but the witch was quick. Too quick. She twisted, her body snapping back like a viper, and within moments she matched his speed. Magic crackled in the air, and Adrian barely dodged the next attack. Claws clashed, fangs bared, their fight turning into a vicious blur of movement. Every blow Adrian landed, she countered. Every slash he dodged, she returned with something worse. And then Kieran moved. I barely noticed at first. He had been lying on the ground, barely breathing, but now he was on his feet. His steps were slow, deliberate, and yet something in his presence felt heavier, more meaningful. His expression was unreadable. Pain, regret, determination all tangled together. Then, when the witch was locked in combat with Adrian, Kieran did something none of us expected. He drove a sharp weapon straight into his own chest. The moment Kieran did, the witch let out a scream, one that didn't belong to her alone. It was as if her very soul had been ripped open. She stumbled, her magic flickering. Adrian didn't hesitate. He lunged, seizing the moment. His claws tore through the witch with unrelenting force, and in one final strike, she collapsed. Silence fell. The battle was over. Adrian stood over the witch's lifeless body, his chest rising and falling heavily. His fur was streaked with stains, his eyes glowing in the dim light. He had won. He had proven himself, once again, as the true alpha. But Kieran was on the ground, gasping for air. I ran to him, my knees hitting the dirt as I reached for his face. He was pale, his breaths shallow, his fingers trembling. Why? My voice cracked. Why did you do that? Kieran's lips twitched into the faintest, weakest smile.
Because I knew it would work. I told you. I knew how to stop her.
I shook my head, pressing my hands against his wound. You were already sick, Kieran. You didn't have to do this. His dark eyes met mine, filled with something I couldn't quite name.
Was a good man once. A good alpha. Your best friend. Adrian's best friend. But fate turned me into something else.
His eyes flickered with regret.
Jealousy, darkness. It twisted me. I knew when I came back that it was too late. I knew you had moved on, but still, I couldn't let go.
He took a shaky breath.
I love you, Celine. I always will.
His eyelids fluttered, his body going limp. No. Stay with me, I pleaded, gripping his face, but his eyes had already closed. I barely registered Adrian's footsteps as he approached. His voice was rough, filled with something too painful to name.
Kieran.
He murmured, kneeling beside us.
My alpha.
For the first time, he sounded like a man who had lost his closest friend.
I never wanted this.
Adrian said, his voice quieter now.
I thought I would destroy you the moment I got out, that I'd make you pay for everything, but when I saw you, I couldn't.
His hands clenched into fists.
I can't betray you, Kieran. Not because you were my alpha, but because you were my brother.
Adrian exhaled, his gaze lowering.
I have to go.
Panic shot through me. Adrian, don't. Please. He shook his head, taking a step back.
I've ruined enough. I can't stay here.
This isn't your fault. My voice was desperate, but Adrian just looked at me, something unreadable in his expression. One of the pack members stepped forward hesitantly.
My beta, how did you escape?
Adrian didn't even blink.
I never escaped. It was our plan all along. I waited until the witch moved toward the fortress. Then I attacked from behind, but when I realized it would be too late, I lunged on her.
A brilliant strategy, and yet, here he was, choosing to leave. Adrian, I said again, softer this time.
Take care of Kieran.
He said, his voice rough with something deeper.
And if you can, tell him I never betrayed him. Tell him I never betrayed you.
He hesitated, then added.
Loving someone isn't a crime, Celine. I loved you, but it was never a crime.
My breath caught. Before I could say anything, a different voice broke the moment.
Adrian.
It was another pack member.
We need a strong alpha. We need you.
Adrian's eyes widened, surprise flashing across his face. But then he shook his head.
That is not my fate.
The words cut deep. At that moment, Kieran stirred. A weak groan left his lips, and I was by his side in an instant. Kieran! His eyes fluttered open.
Celine,
His voice was so faint I had to lean closer.
I am losing my breaths.
Someone get the doctor! I shouted. Within seconds, the doctor was kneeling beside him, his hands already moving. I watched as Kieran's eyes flickered. Then, suddenly, he gasped, fully waking up. The pack erupted into relieved murmurs, their gazes turning toward Kieran. And then, toward me. The moment stretched, heavy and uncertain.
We welcome you back, Alpha Kieran.
One of the pack members said, but there was hesitation. A pause. Then another voice added,
But we need a strong leader, someone who can protect us.
Their meaning was clear. I turned, searching for Adrian, but he was gone. Something in me shifted. I am your alpha, I said. The pack froze. Then, in a single synchronized motion, they drew their weapons. My breath caught. For a moment, everything blurred. My fingers curled at my sides, my heart hammering. And then, one by one, they kneeled. Weapons lowered. Blades pressed into the ground in respect. A wave of relief crashed over me so strong I almost collapsed. This was it. I was their alpha. We returned to our home, our place, but somehow it was different. Adrian, our beta, was gone. Kieran was ill. He was no more alpha. I let him to rest. I woke up to an unsettling stillness in the room. The fire in the hearth had burned down to mere embers, casting weak flickers of light across the wooden walls. I pulled the blanket tighter around me, delaying the moment I had to step out into the cold morning. Kieran hadn't stirred all night. He had been weaker the past few days, his breaths growing shallow, his strength slipping away little by little. I turned toward him, expecting to see his chest rise, even if just faintly. But there was nothing. No movement, no breath. My fingers trembled as I reached for him. His skin was cold, too cold. My throat clenched, but I didn't make a sound. I had known this day was coming. A part of me had been preparing for it since the moment he collapsed after the battle. But knowing something and facing it were two different things. I sat there, frozen, watching him as if he might wake up at any moment, as if he was merely resting. But he wasn't. He was gone. A single tear rolled down my cheek, but I quickly wiped it away. Mourning had no place in leadership. I had already shed enough tears for Kieran in the past, when he was lost in his darkness, when he made choices that hurt us all, when I feared he would never return to the man he once was. Now he was free from all of it. The final rituals were carried out with great honor. The pack members, dressed in their ceremonial attire, gathered around as the elders spoke words of respect. Flames swallowed his body, carrying him to the ancestors. The wind carried the scent of burning wood and herbs, a reminder that life moved forward, no matter how much we wished to pause. The next morning, the weight of responsibility pressed harder than ever. Kieran was gone, and the pack needed leadership. A meeting was called in the great hall, the scent of damp wood and aged stone filling the space as everyone gathered. One of the elders stood, his voice calm but firm.
Celine, what is your next plan?
I frowned. What do you mean? The room stirred. A few members exchanged glances before another spoke.
If you wish to remain alpha, you must marry a strong man. It is the way of our kind. An alpha must have a mate.
I took a slow breath, glancing around the room. The expectant looks, the hopeful glances from younger warriors straightening their shoulders, adjusting their tunics. each one believing he might be chosen. I didn't say a word. Instead, I turned and walked out of the hall. The air outside was crisp, the scent of pine and earth grounding me. My steps carried me toward the stables, where the horses stood ready. I selected a strong black mare, her coat shining under the early sun. As I swung onto the saddle, a voice called out behind me.
Where are you going?
I didn't look back. To find my future mate. Silence fell over them, but I didn't wait for their approval. I gripped the reins, feeling the steady power beneath me. Then, under my breath, I whispered, "Wherever you are, I will find you." And with that, I rode toward the forest, toward the unknown, toward whatever fate had planned for me next. But I will find him.
The news was still playing on the tiny kitchen TV in the background, but my focus was on the smudge of lipstick on my upper lip. I leaned into the mirror near the dining area and dabbed at it with the corner of a tissue.
"Did you hear about that forest thing?"
Hilda called from the living room, loud enough to cut through the buzz of the television.
"They're saying some weird animals were spotted out there last night. Like, really weird. Not just bears or coyotes, something darker."
I glanced over my shoulder, one brow lifted. Dark animals? What does that even mean? What, like depressed raccoons? Hilda burst out laughing from the couch, tossing her perfectly curled hair over one shoulder. She looked like she'd walked out of a magazine cover, strapless silver dress hugging her body just right, heels to die for, and makeup that made her look like she'd been airbrushed. Typical Hilda. Gorgeous and effortless.
"Amelia,"
she said between laughs,
"I'm serious. The report said people weren't sure they were animals at all."
I smirked and turned back to the mirror. My dress was a dark red, hugging me softly around the waist with a tasteful hint of curves. Not too much, just enough to remind myself I could look good when I wanted to. I'd gone light on the eyeshadow, a subtle brown shimmer that brought out the gold tones in my hair, and a soft gloss on my lips that made them look fuller. No fake lashes, just mascara and confidence. Well, the kind you fake until you feel it. Maybe it's just some guy in a costume trying to scare hikers, I said, smoothing my dress down at the sides, like one of those viral prank videos.
"You always do this?"
Hilda said, getting up and grabbing her clutch.
"You act like you don't care, and then 2 days later, I find you knee-deep in YouTube rabbit holes about it."
I laughed, caught red-handed. Okay, maybe, but it's all nonsense. That forest's been around forever. If there was something creepy in there, someone would have found it by now.
"Maybe someone did,"
she said with a dramatic raise of her brows.
"And they just didn't make it back out."
That made me pause, just for a second. My fingers froze on my hairbrush. I didn't let it show, though. Curiosity was a personal thing. I never liked showing it. "Whatever," I shrugged. "Tonight's about you, birthday girl." She beamed at that and did a playful spin.
"Damn right it is."
We left the house just as the sky turned that soft lavender blue. Our heels clicked on the pavement as we headed for the metro. The air was cool, not cold, just enough to make me wish I'd brought a jacket. We passed the edge of the neighborhood where the sidewalk curved, and that's when Hilda pointed across the street.
"That's the forest they were talking about,"
she said, voice a little lower now. It looked the same as always, dense trees, tangled branches, the kind of place kids dared each other to run into for playing. Nothing unusual, but still, something about the way the breeze moved the leaves made me pause, just for a second. I still say it's a load of crap, I said with a shrug, though my eyes lingered a little too long.
"Sure you do,"
Hilda smirked.
"Just don't go running in there with a flashlight like last time you got obsessed with that haunted gas station story."
I didn't go running in there, I shot back. I walked, casually. We both laughed again, but inside, my mind was already working. I'd seen enough mystery documentaries to know when something didn't add up. And that forest? It had a vibe tonight. Something about it looked still, like it was waiting. I didn't say it out loud, but I'd already made the plan. Tonight, after the party, I'd go back, alone, with my camera. The metro ride was quick. The club was already pulsing with music by the time we got there. Colored lights dancing on the sidewalk, bouncers checking IDs, the works. We slid in with no trouble. Hilda's birthday meant VIP wristbands, free drinks, and a little table near the back, where we could actually hear each other talk. She was glowing, and I loved seeing her like that. She deserved it. There wasn't a fake bone in her body. The second we stepped past the second velvet ropes, a wave of music and flashing lights wrapped around us like we were stepping into another universe. The bass hit low in my chest, and the colorful strobe lights danced across Hilda's sequin dress, making her sparkle like a disco ball. I leaned closer and half shouted, "Okay, now it's officially a party." Hilda grinned.
"Wait till you see the dance floor."
I took a sip of my drink and leaned back in the booth, watching everyone move on the dance floor. The bass vibrated through the soles of my shoes. It felt good to be out, felt normal, but I couldn't stop thinking about that forest. I caught myself staring toward the exit once or twice. My curiosity had claws, and it was digging in deep. Then Hilda took me to the dance floor. Somewhere between my bad dance moves and Hilda trying to get the DJ to play early 2000 hits, I quietly decided, tonight, after everyone goes home, I'm taking my camera and going into that forest. Already planned, just for a look. Nothing crazy, just a peek. And maybe, just maybe, I'd find out what those so-called dark animals really were, even if I didn't believe in monsters. Something about tonight felt like the start of one. We hadn't made it 5 steps before 2 familiar figures waved us down near the corner booth. Our girls.
"Amelia! Hilda!"
One of them squealed. That was Tessa, tiny, loud, and always dressed like she had her own reality show. She wore a black crop top with silver hoops swinging from her ears. Beside her was Riley, chill as ever in her leather jacket and combat boots, sipping something neon green through a straw.
"You two took forever,"
Riley said, raising a brow.
"We were fashionably late,"
Hilda answered with a wink, looping her arm through mine.
"Tell me you already ordered shots?"
Tessa held up a tray.
"You know I got you."
We all clinked glasses. The liquid burned on the way down, but settled into something warm and reckless. "I missed you guys," I said, leaning back into the booth, the music buzzing under my skin. I needed this.
"And you wore that?"
Tessa eyed me with a grin.
"Girl, someone's getting attention tonight."
I glanced down at my dress, the deep red one hugging my curves just right, a teasing dip at the neckline. I shrugged playfully. I just threw it on.
"Uh-huh,"
Riley smirked.
"Threw it on after a 2-hour debate and 3 outfit changes."
"Okay, fair," I laughed. The DJ switched tracks, the beat speeding up like the room's energy just leveled up.
"That's our song,"
Hilda said, grabbing my hand.
"Come on!"
We dragged Tessa and Riley with us, weaving through the crowd to the center of the dance floor. Lights flashed, bodies moved in sync, and suddenly I wasn't thinking about news reports or mysterious forests or beautiful boys watching from across the room. For a few minutes, it was just us, dancing, laughing, wild in the moment, carefree, almost. Because even as I lost myself in the music, I felt those eyes still watching me, somewhere out there in the crowd, and it made my skin hum.
"You see that guy in the gray sweater?"
Hilda whispered across the rim of her cocktail glass, eyes locked on a tall guy near the bar.
"He's been checking you out since we walked in."
I squinted. That one. He looks like he just got off work at a tech startup and hasn't slept in 3 days.
"Okay, fair. What about the guy next to him, with the arm tattoos?"
"He's cute," I admitted, sipping my drink. But those tattoos scream still healing from an ex. We both laughed, Hilda nearly choking on her drink. Her eyes sparkled under the club lights.
"You are so picky,"
she said.
"You should have come out with me more often. San Francisco is crawling with men who need emotional damage to feel hot.
I'm not picky, I said with a smirk. I just like my disasters a little more organized. We clinked our glasses. Mine was some strawberry cocktail with a sugar rim that I didn't even ask for, but it tasted sweet enough to keep me sipping. That's when I saw them, 2 of them, both at different corners, like they'd been pulled straight out of some moody drama with high-budget lighting. They weren't talking to anyone, just standing across the club near the velvet rope, as if they didn't need to mingle because the whole damn room had already noticed them. Okay, I said, leaning in. Now they don't look like anyone's ex.
Who?
Hilda followed my eyes, then her lips parted.
Whoa! Who are they? Mysterious boys or something?
The first one, I'd find out later, was in this shining blue coat, white button-up underneath, tucked neatly into tailored black trousers that fit like they'd been stitched straight onto him. His jawline was razor-sharp, and those eyes, dark blue, intense, like the ocean just before a storm. Not that I'm a poet, but damn. The other one wore this deep brown leather jacket that screamed money. His trousers were Gucci. I saw the tiny label near his belt. And his hair? Slick, not greasy. Just perfectly set like he stepped off a cologne ad. He had that quiet, dangerous energy. Elegant, yes, but with something rough around the edges.
You're welcome,
Hilda said proudly, as if she'd summoned them from thin air. I don't even know which one I'm staring at, I said, still trying to breathe normally. Is that legal?
They're not just handsome,
she whispered.
They're unfairly handsome.
They don't look like they're from around here.
Nope,
she agreed.
They look like they came out of a vampire reboot or a European fashion war.
I laughed, trying to act casual while completely losing my cool inside. They're not looking at me, I said, pretending to fix my hair.
Yes they are,
Hilda snapped.
Brown jacket. He's watching you like he's deciding which playlist to put you on.
That's not even a real thing, I said, blushing.
Okay, fine. He's watching you like you're a puzzle he can't wait to solve.
I stared back, just for a second. James was leaning against the corner post, arms crossed. His eyes didn't move when I looked. He just tilted his head slightly, like he already knew I'd end up walking over. And that smirk? Trouble. Beautiful, expensive trouble. Then the blue coat guy moved, shifted slightly, and when his eyes met mine, something clicked. His stare wasn't playful. It wasn't cocky. It was calm, measured, like he was trying to read me, not seduce me. And that somehow felt worse, in a good way. I turned quickly back to Hilda. Okay, I'm officially confused.
That brown jacket handsome wants you,
she said.
But that blue coat looks like he's about to write poetry about you.
Don't make this harder, I replied.
Fine,
she grinned.
Then I'll make it more fun.
Oh no, I muttered.
I dare you to flirt with one of them.
I blinked. Excuse me?
You heard me. Pick one, walk over, and flirt. 5 minutes. No chickening out.
This isn't middle school.
Nope, it's Club Road. And I'm your best friend on her birthday. And this is my official wish.
You're using your birthday wish on me embarrassing myself in front of 2 supermodels?
Yes,
she said with a devilish grin.
And you're welcome.
I looked back toward them, still there, still too perfect, still watching like the world was slow except for whatever they were seeing in me. I took a breath. All right, I'll go to that brown jacket first. Hilda squealed.
Yes, I love this for us.
Then I'll talk to the blue coat, I added.
Oh, a double play. Bold move.
Don't hype it up. I'm just testing the water.
I'll order us another round while you work your magic,
she said, already flagging down the bartender. The music swelled. The lights spun. I finished the last sip of my drink and smoothed the sides of my dress. My palms were slightly sweaty, but I wiped them on my clutch. No one would notice. I started walking across the club floor, weaving through people, my heels clicking with every step. The man in brown jacket. His eyes never left me. He didn't blink, didn't flinch, just waited like he knew this moment was his, like he'd been expecting me. Okay, breathe, I whispered to myself, fixing a stray strand of hair near my cheek before I stepped into the cozy little cafe tucked off Mission Street. It smelled like espresso and warm pastries, and the soft jazz playing in the background felt like it belonged to a different lifetime, one where people casually dated instead of accidentally spiraling into something way deeper than they meant to. He was already there, the man in brown jacket, sitting at a corner table, sleeves rolled up like he didn't even try, but somehow managed to look like he walked straight out of a magazine ad. His fingers were wrapped around a ceramic mug, and his eyes, those ridiculous dark amber eyes, lit up the second they landed on me.
Hey,
He said, smiling, standing halfway like a gentleman.
you look... wow.
I smiled, playing it cool, but my cheeks felt warm. You say that to every girl who orders coffee with you?
Only the ones who wear leather boots and ask for 2 sugars without blinking.
I laughed, sliding into the chair across from him. That was one time. He leaned in.
It was unforgettable.
That's how it started. One coffee turned into hours. We talked about music, old memories, the time I fell off a bike when I was 8 and pretended it was part of a stunt. He told me about how he grew up on the coast, small town, big sky, always feeling like there was something waiting for him just beyond the waves. And the weird part? It didn't feel like we were trying. We weren't performing. We were just there, 2 people with a hot drink and a bunch of things we hadn't said out loud before. He leaned just slightly closer, his drink resting in his hand like it belonged there, like he belonged here. The bass from the music thudded in the background, but somehow the noise felt far away.
You've been looking at me like you're trying to solve a riddle.
He said, that little smirk playing on his lips. I tilted my head, half grinning. Maybe I am. You look like someone with a story. He chuckled, deep and warm.
Fair enough. I'll give you the first page.
He held out his hand, his fingers long and strong, a silver ring catching the soft light.
I'm James, just James. No middle name, no crazy last name, no secret spy title. Yet.
I placed my hand in his. His grip was cool, confident. Just James, huh? He didn't let go right away.
Unless you want to give me a better name.
I laughed, low and soft. You don't look like a Mike or a Danny, so James it is. He raised a brow.
And you are?
I bit the inside of my cheek, pretending to think like I was giving away state secrets. Amelia. He repeated it like it was a song lyric he wanted to remember.
Amelia, that fits. You don't look like someone who follows the crowd.
You don't look like someone who's used to chasing girls, and I shot back playfully. He leaned in just enough for me to catch the hint of his cologne.
I don't chase, Amelia. I notice.
My cheeks heated, but I held his gaze, unblinking. Well, now that you've noticed me, what are you going to do about it? He smiled, slow and sure.
Ask if I can keep talking to you a little longer.
My friend is waiting, and I have to go now, I replied with a smile. James nodded his head and bowed his head in response. Then I stood up and walked. And just like that, it didn't feel like a party anymore. It felt like the start of something. By the time the music faded into the background and the buzz from my last drink softened into a warm haze, I looked at Hilda and grinned. My cheeks were probably still flushed from laughing too hard and talking too much with James, but I didn't care. I think I'm done for the night, I said, tugging my clutch under my arm. That last drink was definitely unnecessary. Hilda leaned into me, her heels clicking unevenly on the floor.
Girl, same. My legs hurt, my head's a balloon, and I can't feel my left foot. Let's bounce.
We stepped out of the club, the air hitting us cooler than expected. I blinked up at the streetlights, the night oddly still except for the low city hum. We were both wobbling a little, laughing at nothing. arms looped together like we were kids again. "You and the brown jacket guy, huh?" Hilda teased, bumping my hip with hers. I rolled my eyes, smiling. His name is James, by the way. And yeah, he's different.
Different good or different you need to run?
I shrugged, still floating in the way he looked at me like I wasn't invisible for once. Different good, I think. We kept walking, heading toward the metro entrance we always used, right past the edge of that old patch of forest, the one that always looked like it didn't belong in the middle of the city. I was too caught up in replaying everything James said. The way he leaned in when I talked, the subtle compliments that didn't feel rehearsed. His voice was still in my head. Then Hilda stopped.
"Wait, did you hear that?"
I blinked, coming back to earth. "Hear what?" She turned her head slightly toward the trees.
"Something moved. Right there, like, not far in."
I glanced lazily toward the forest line, but honestly, it looked the same as it always did. Quiet, still. Creepy in the usual way. "Hilda, you're drunk," I laughed. "It's probably wind or your imagination acting dramatic again."
"No, I swear, something moved,"
she insisted, narrowing her eyes. I kept walking. "If it was a forest monster, it's probably on break. Let's go. My feet are killing me." She hesitated a beat longer, staring into the dark like it owed her an explanation, then huffed and followed me. When we finally reached my house, the porch light was still on. Figures. Mom and Dad could never sleep if I was out late, no matter how old I got. Hilda gave me a quick hug before I could even turn the knob.
"So, are we just not gonna talk about Mr. Bluecoat?"
I blinked. "Who?" She raised her brows.
"The other guy, blue suit. Eyes like a freaking painting. Remember?"
"Oh my God," I burst out laughing. I completely forgot about him. She laughed too, pulling away.
"That's what James did to you? Damn. I mean, you were the one pointing him out. I just got distracted."
"Well, you better hope the blue coat guy doesn't have feelings, because y'all ghosted him hard." We both laughed again, still tipsy, still dizzy from the whole night. Then she waved and started down the street toward her house. I slipped quietly into mine. Mom was sitting on the couch with a half-finished cup of tea. Dad was half asleep in his chair with the news playing low on the TV.
"You smell like whiskey,"
Mom said, glancing at me over her mug. "It was Hilda's birthday," I said, taking off my heels immediately. "Don't judge." She didn't say anything else, just gave me that mom look like she was holding back a paragraph. But I knew she wouldn't push it tonight.
"You okay?"
Dad asked, not even opening his eyes. "I'm good, just tired." I padded into my room, dropped my clutch on the dresser, and pulled off my dress with a sigh. My head was spinning, not from the alcohol, but from him. James. The way he looked at me, the way I couldn't stop thinking about him. I slipped into my favorite soft tee and cotton shorts, wiped off my makeup, then flopped down onto the bed, hair fanned out on the pillow. For a split second, I thought about the forest, that sound Hilda heard. But James' smile came rushing back, replacing the unease. And then I drifted off. I woke up way later than I'd planned. My head was a little cloudy, not from the drinks, I wasn't that far gone, but from all the thoughts swirling about James. His voice, the way he looked at me like I wasn't just another girl in a party crowd. It was ridiculous how he stuck to my brain like a catchy song. I pushed the blanket off and stretched, letting out a sigh. My legs felt heavy, my arms even heavier. I shuffled toward the bathroom, half asleep, and turned the tap. A warm shower usually helped me reboot my brain. Steam rose around me while I scrubbed off last night's makeup, shampooed the party out of my hair, and wrapped myself in the biggest towel I had. Back in my room, I pulled open my closet and slipped into my favorite simple white blouse and navy blue skirt. It wasn't designer, but it looked smart enough. I tied my hair into a low ponytail and went for a nude lipstick. I wanted to look professional. I was planning to hit up at least 3 stores and 2 small offices for job leads. I slung my bag over my shoulder, said a quick bye to Mom, who was too busy rearranging the spice rack to ask questions, and stepped out into the sun. The day was bright, too bright, like the kind of morning that dares you to be productive. I was halfway across the road, flipping through Google Maps for the next store to try, when it happened. A car zoomed past, way too close to the sidewalk. It hit a pothole and splashed. "Oh, come on," I yelled, jumping back. My whole side, skirt, blouse, and even my bag, got speckled with brown mud. A sloppy, sticky mess right before the first interview. The car didn't stop. Just kept speeding like it hadn't just ruined someone's dignity. "Hey, seriously," I shouted, raising my hands, but that guy was gone in seconds. People around glanced for a second and looked away like drama was part of the weather. I looked down at my clothes and groaned. There was no way I could walk into an interview looking like I'd fallen into a swamp. I glanced around, desperate for anything. That's when I spotted a store right across the street. Glass front, mannequins, soft music playing inside. I didn't even look at the name, I just walked in. Rows of stylish outfits, all hung like art pieces. The air smelled expensive. The kind of place where even socks cost more than my entire breakfast budget for a week. I wandered toward a display of dresses, praying they had some clearance rack in the back or something. One dress caught my eye. A soft teal professional dress, pencil fit, with a neat belt around the waist and folded sleeves. It screamed, "Hire me," in the classiest way. I flipped the tag. Nope. There went the budget. It was almost 5 times than what I could afford. I turned to walk away, about to pretend I'd just taken a wrong turn.
Amelia?
I froze. That voice, smooth, confident, familiar. I turned around. James, of course. He was standing there, just a few feet away, looking as put together as always. Dark jeans, fitted gray tee, and that same sharp look in his eyes, like he saw more than you were letting on. He looked me up and down, catching the mud stains instantly.
Tough day.
You could say that, I said, forcing a smile. Was just heading to some interviews. Then a maniac driver thought I needed a mud bath. James chuckled.
And you came here for a wardrobe rescue?
Honestly, I didn't even realize where I walked in. I was just looking for any store. Then I saw that dress. I paused. But nope, not in the budget. He glanced at the dress rack behind me.
That one?
He asked, stepping toward it. His fingers touched the same dress I was drooling over a second ago.
Good choice. That color would look great on you.
My face heated. Well, I was thinking about it, but before I could finish, James waved over the attendant.
Can you get this in her size? And the fitting room ready?
My mouth dropped a little. Wait, what?
You can't walk around like that, Amelia.
He pointed at the blotches of mud like it offended him.
You'll scare the interviewers.
James, I wasn't planning to buy it. It's expensive. He smiled.
I didn't say you had to. I got it.
I blinked. You're buying me a dress? He tilted his head, that same confident spark in his eyes.
Unless you'd rather go interview for jobs looking like you lost a fight with a puddle.
I didn't know what to say. My brain was short-circuiting. He added,
Look, you don't owe me anything. It's just a dress. Think of it as lucky job armor.
I let out a breath and laughed. You're something else, James. He smirked.
Now go change. I want to see if I guessed your size right.
I took the dress from the attendant and walked to the changing room, my thoughts a mess. Who was this guy? We had only one real conversation, and here he was, calm as anything, buying me a designer dress like it was just a coffee. Inside the changing room, I slipped into the dress. It fit like it was made for me. I stared at myself in the mirror and felt like a whole new version of Amelia, one who had her life together. I walked out, adjusting the belt around my waist. James smiled.
Told you. That color was made for you.
I rolled my eyes, but I smiled too. All right, you win. Thanks. Really. We walked out together, and as we reached the sidewalk, he looked at me.
Mind if I get your number?
He asked casually. like he hadn't just upgraded my entire morning. I pulled out my phone, handed it to him. Sure, fair trade for a dress. He typed quickly and handed it back.
Looking forward to hearing how those interviews go.
Maybe I'll even get a job thanks to my lucky armor, I said, glancing down at the teal fabric.
You will,
he said.
And if not, we will figure something else out.
I turned and headed the shop I was looking for my interview job, but they said they don't have any vacancies. Then I headed home. This guy was seriously messing with my brain, and I wasn't sure I minded. In the evening, my phone blinked. James texted me at 10. James asked,
Dinner? 7 p.m.? Don't say no.
I laughed and typed back, me. Only if you promise not to quiz me about classic rock again. James asked.
No promises. Wear something that makes me stare.
I rolled my eyes, but still spent a solid hour figuring out which dress walked the line between casual and yes, I look good and I know it. I went with a soft beige wrap dress and gold hoops. Subtle, confident. Like me, if I wasn't currently panicking about what to do with my hands when I saw him. The restaurant was warm, the kind of place with low lighting, brick walls, and waiters who knew just when to show up. James stood when I arrived, pulled out my chair, and that stupid grin on his face made my stomach flip in the best way.
You clean up nice,
he said, raising a brow. You already said that, I teased.
I'm just consistent.
Dinner was slow, not in a boring way, more like we didn't rush. I talked about my failed job interviews and how my mom kept trying to casually bring up marriage over breakfast. He shared his weird obsession with crossword puzzles and how he always buys mango juice, but never drinks it. Why do you buy it then? I asked, laughing.
I think it's the dream of liking mango juice, not the juice itself.
That is so weird.
You love it.
Maybe I did. Later, that night, at home, I tiptoed into the house, and of course, Mom was waiting like she hadn't been peeking through the blinds.
You're late,
she said, pretending to fold laundry that wasn't even hers. It's not that late, Mom.
So, how's James?
I blinked. Wait, how do you know his name?
You think Hilda didn't spill the beans?
She smiled. He's handsome and polite. He came to the door. He also opens car doors, Dad said, suddenly appearing with a half-eaten sandwich.
That boy's got manners. Finally, someone with sense.
Oh my God, I groaned, heading to my room.
But you like him, right?
Mom called. I paused at the stairs. I like him. Dad chuckled behind me.
We'll start shopping for a tux.
Dad. And just like that, Kay went to sleep. Every day after that just kept happening. We met up for walks at the pier, late-night drives, sharing fries at a diner that stayed open way too late. He'd say something dumb, and I'd pretend to be annoyed, but my cheeks would betray me every time. One night, we were parked by the edge of the city, skyline glowing like something out of a dream. I didn't expect this, I said, arms tucked under my coat.
Didn't expect what?
You, United States. This weird thing we're doing. He looked at me, real serious for a second.
Maybe weird's what we needed.
And I didn't say it, but I kinda agreed. The next morning, Hilda and me, we were on my bed, eating chips and going through her phone when she looked at me sideways and said,
Okay, what's going on with you?
What do you mean?
You've been smiling at walls. You hum now. You never hum.
I smirked. James is, I don't know, it's easy with him.
You like him,
she sang, throwing a pillow at me. Maybe.
You so like him, and he likes you back. I can feel it.
I hugged the pillow and stared at the ceiling. Yeah, maybe I did. And maybe that was the start of something way bigger than I could see coming. The sun was out, but not warm. One of those weird San Francisco days where the sky looked pretty, but the wind had a bite. I pulled my jacket tighter and kept walking. My resume folder tucked under my arm, trying to look confident even though I was heading to my third job inquiry of the day. The street I was on curved near the edge of the city, brushing up against the woods. You know, the same forest where people had been whispering about animal sightings and strange howls at night. I usually avoided this route, but I was running late, and the shortcut cut 10 minutes easy. I passed by the thick patch of trees, barely looked that way, until something pulled my attention. I don't know what. A shift in the shadows, maybe. I turned my head and froze. There he was, a man, half hidden behind a tree. Black hoodie pulled up, mask covering most of his face, just standing there, angled slightly like he was trying not to be seen, but absolutely watching me. I swallowed hard and picked up my pace, trying not to make it obvious. My boots clicked faster on the pavement, and I cursed myself for wearing heeled ones. I didn't look back until I hit the next block, right where the trail curved toward the shops. My eyes flicked to the trees. He was there again, behind a different tree, much farther ahead than he should have been, still watching me. What the hell, I whispered to myself. I didn't wait. I bolted straight into the first open place I saw, a cozy little cafe with fogged windows and jazz humming softly inside. The attendant greeted me with a smile. I barely smiled back. My hands were a little shaky as I ordered a small cappuccino and slid into a seat by the window, just so I could see if that guy was still out there. And he was. Standing at the edge of the sidewalk, face tilted slightly, peeking in from the corner of the window like he was part of the shadows, watching me. I blinked, looked again. He was gone. Gone like he'd never been there. My breath caught in my throat. And then, the bell above the cafe door chimed. A tall man walked in. Blue coat, sharp jawline, messy dark hair that somehow still looked intentional. He scanned the room once, then walked over and sat down right at the table next to mine, without even asking.
Amelia,
He said, his voice deep and calm like velvet and warning all at once. I stared. Do I know you? He smirked slightly.
Antonio, I'm the guy you were staring at in the club a few nights ago.
My eyes narrowed. Okay, weird move. What do you want?
I want to tell you a story.
He said.
A real one, not some fairy tale.
I leaned back, instantly suspicious. Then it hit me, his eyes. They were the same ones. The same eyes I'd seen watching me from behind those trees. Same sharp color. Same stare that felt like it knew things about me I hadn't told anyone. My stomach dropped. It was you, I said quietly. You were in the woods, watching me. Why? Why were you trying to scare me? And how the hell did you move that fast? You were behind one tree, and the next second, another one way across, like you just skipped space. He didn't even flinch.
That's not the real trouble here.
He said low.
You need to listen. I'm only here to help you.
I shook my head. I don't need any help. I don't even know you. Please leave. He leaned in slightly, his tone tight.
You're not getting it. You should have chosen me that night. Or maybe someone else, but not him.
My heart skipped. So now you're trying to force me to fall for you?